Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage. Mirage.
I am not a flat earther. I am a realist. I no longer believe the earth is flat. I know the earth is flat. I am not a flat earther. I am a realist. I am a realist. I am a realist. So when I think of the word earth, I want to make a ball. That's how strong the indoctrination is. We say prove it. They can't. We say prove it. They can't. They got to manufacture a reality. And that's how they have won. I'm no longer a flat earther. I'm a realist. I am a realist. They place that label on us. I am a realist. I am a realist. That no longer resonates with me. I don't see myself as a flat earther. I am not a flat earther. I am a realist. I am a realist. No one on the planet has ever experienced the earth as a ball. No one. You must experience it and no longer will use the term flat earth. I'm a realist. I am a realist. I am a realist. I'm not playing that game anymore. It's that simple. It's that simple.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism back with a live video for you tonight. Sorry about being late, but you're probably used to that. What's up going on, everybody in the chat? Thank you for joining us. Hopefully everybody hears my voice and you heard the sound on the video. Hopefully everything is good. What's up, Vincent Michael? Thank you guys for joining me. I am being joined this evening by one of my favorite... Oops, now I'm getting a text. I don't know what just happened. Somebody's not hearing me or something. Let me check it out. Audio's low. Okay, we're going to turn it up. 1 second. Make sure that we've got a little better sound. And let me turn that up and turn this up. And we're going to turn this one up. All right, hopefully that should be better. And if not, well, then get closer to your speaker then. No, I'm just kidding. Joining me joining me this evening is Curtis from the channel Vegan Warrior. Curtis, what's going on? How are you?
Jaron, what's up, brother? How you doing?
It's good to have you with me. Let me see here. Okay, your voice is perfect. Thank you, Bob. Hey, Bob just called my voice perfect. How about that? It's pretty kind of him.
Cool.
So thank you for joining me. And we're going to talk a little bit about our senses. And I think if you guys have heard me talking about it recently, it's something I kind of came to, I don't know, probably in the last month or two. And I think a lot of it has to do with, watching some of Curtis's stuff, that the way he explained, what we actually experience every day and how that is what the truth is. The truth is not what's told to you. The truth is not what's handed to you by teachers. The truth is what we experience. And I think, a good way to describe that, or a good little situation, would be, if you had, we know our senses, right? But if you had no sense of smell, and somebody sat right next to you and farted, just for example, you would never know that even happened. That you just aren't going to know it happened, because, sorry, my phone's on, because that's not touching any of your senses. And so, does it exist? Yeah, I guess maybe it exists, but it has no interaction with you because it doesn't touch your senses. So when you look at things and you kind of draw that out, really think about space. To me, the more I thought about space, I said, well, they're telling me something that will never, ever touch my senses. I will never touch Saturn. I will never put my feet on Jupiter. I will never travel to the stars. And so really, that's, if there's any place for them to tell a lie, it's going to be there. So Curtis, tell everybody, first, where they can find your channel and what you do. And then tell me a little bit about what your opinion is of our senses and how we've been fooled of how to use them and how they work.
Great. Well, first, let me thank you for being on the show. I've been wanting to talk to you guys for a while. I talked to you early on when Goldbusters first started. I was on the show for a little while. So yeah, this is pretty cool to have a one-on-one with you because you're one of my favorites as well.
Thank you.
I am the Vegan Warrior. My channel is the Vegan Warrior, and I didn't get serious about YouTube and making videos outside of vegan stuff until January 1, 2017. So what I did was I was pretty popular on Facebook for a long time, and I dropped my Facebook account, and I started focusing exclusively on YouTube January 1, 2017. And discussion was thriving about the flat earth. And I looked into it, and I've always had a suspicion and never believed we went to the moon. That was pretty much how I came into this whole discussion of flat earth, the moon missions. The moon missions, to me, are pretty much proof that they don't know the shape of the earth. And everything other than that is speculative. But as I started paying attention to the topic of flat earth, I realized there were some things that were overlooked, even by us, flat earthers. We tend to run to the scientific explanation, forgetting about our five tools of knowing what's true. And for us to know what exists outside of ourselves, we have to be in tune with our five senses. Sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. If we don't trust our God-given tools to know what is real outside of ourselves, they got us. If we're reliant on knowing what's true about the cosmos, about space, and the argument is you can't trust your five senses, that means we are at the behest of whatever they tell us. And I think that's how we got into this problem, walking away from our natural senses.
Right, because that's what science did, right? I mean, science came around and told us our senses didn't work, that they couldn't be trusted.
No, right.
And I was just thinking of some examples, and I heard one last night, and people won't get to see this show for probably another. Hopefully it's before 2 weeks, but it was a very exciting show last night. Dave Weiss and I were on a show called, I want to say Hysteria 51. I'm probably wrong on that, but it's a radio podcast, and we didn't know, but we went up against a NASA employee and a SpaceX employee. We didn't even know it was supposed to be like a debate. But we did really, really well. I think those guys, the mistake that those guys are going to make right now is if they ever hear they're going to be on with flat earthers, they're going to just chalk it up to, this is easy. We just got a flat earth conversation tonight. And with Dave Weiss and I, we're able to, keep up with them. So, I mean, if you graded that last night, we destroyed them. But, people will be able to see that. I don't know when that's going to come out. But at one point, the guy was... we're talking about our senses. I kind of brought that up, and the guy says, well, that's not true. You can't. Well, what it was is Dave Weiss was saying how the sun rising in the summer, right when it rises above the horizon, you can feel that bright light on your face. And he said, but the sun's supposed to be closer during the winter. But even if it's right above you, or as close as it gets to above you in the winter, that you can't feel the sun as bright or as hot on your face. So he was saying, our senses tell us that the sun is closer during the summer, not the winter. And the guy says, come on, you can't say that, because he says, I could take my hand and put it in a freezing cold bucket and then pull it out and put it underneath running hot water. And, my hand will feel like it's burning, that it's, on fire.
Right.
And I said, well, what you've done there is you've tricked your senses. You're saying your senses don't work when your senses there are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. that you've put the change in temperature that is so drastic that your senses are they're warning you that your hand's on fire. And I said, but that's because you put it in the ice bucket first, you know. I said, what we're talking about, what David's saying, is actually your real senses. That every day your senses are telling you that the sun is closer during the summer, not the winter. And, you know, I think that they got that. But, yeah, what science did is they seemed to just trick us, because if you would have asked me 2 months ago, Jaron, can you trust your senses? I would say, meh, for the most part, but I think sometimes they're fooled. And I would be wrong,
Right.
I think.
Well, I think there's also a lack of understanding of the five senses. You know, people speak of the five senses as if each sense has its own brain. Senses don't have brains.
Right.
Your senses detect that which exists outside of yourself. All the processing of what was detected occurs in your mind, in your brain. So when your eyes sees an oasis, right? It's not your eyes defining an oasis in the desert. Your mind creates what it's seeing. The eyes may just see the horizon. The oasis is constructed in the processing of your brain. So our senses do not have its own individual intelligence. I think our senses are tools of engaging the external world outside of ourselves. So it can detect something that exists outside of ourselves. And then that detection, that data is gathered and processed in your brain. And that's, our brain determines what was detected, not the sense.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
kind of like that.
So I think,
As you
sorry,
say,
go ahead.
your brain is that filter. It's that, it's the last step until your body knows what actually happened. And I think that's the sad part, because what science realized is, hey, let's get a hold of their brain. Let's get a hold of their
Exactly.
mind, because then when it doesn't matter what sense is activated, it's still got to go through that filter, which is
Okay.
what they've affected by, if they tell you that the stars are 25 trillion miles away and you go out and you look at them, and they may look close, but the last thing that thing's got to go through before you think to yourself, what are those lights, is your brain. And if your brain has been indoctrinated into a belief that the stars or suns 25 trillion miles away, then you're going to think that they're 25 trillion miles away.
Right, exactly. You're trying to make it fit a model. You're trying to take what your senses have detected and put it in a box of definition that you were told, and you're adopting the dogma or the indoctrination of what the thing is itself. And that's why so many people can't see our position of flat Earth, because their minds have been conditioned to ignore their natural senses. Ignore the fact that the moon does not look as far as they claim it to be. Ignore that. Outsource your intelligence to people that's smarter than you. And that's pretty much what it is. So, but let's take it a little further. Kind of like a computer, you have input, processing, and output, right? Computers, that is the basic foundation of computers. Input, processing, output. Your input is a collection of data, right? So when we hit the keyboard, we are sending information to the CPU. The CPU is processing the data that was sent, that was inputted into the computer. And it's putting it in a logical format. But what is it doing? It is freeing itself from contradiction. Mm-hmm. It's freeing itself from contradiction. Because if something is contradictory, it is not said to be true. So you have input, processing, and then you have output, right? That's exactly how our minds work. See, the input into our minds come by way of the five senses. That's the only way you can ever know the truth, if you're in tune with your five senses. It doesn't matter how many people come to you and tell you what truth is. Tell you, well, this is how it is in the cosmos, and we regurgitate it, or we absorb it, and then we regurgitate it. But do we truly know if the thing itself is true? The answer is no. So you have to experience it and recognize it first through your five senses, free it from contradiction, and only then can you say that the thing itself is true. And I think a lot of us ignore the fact that our five senses is our only way to know what's true and what's not true. You know, if you say you can't trust your five senses, basically you're saying you can only trust people who are smarter than you and the information that they provide.
Right. Would you say
That's
that,
basically what you're saying?
would you say that there's a chance that, okay, so let's take somebody who's blind, and that person is using their other senses, but they can't see, and if somebody that's kind of if they're describing for that blind person what something, it's kind of hard because you're not going to be able to describe to somebody who's blind what something looks like, obviously, but
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, okay, so they're trying to tell us what we would sense, right? They're trying to say, all right, if you're in space, you would see this big ball that's Pluto. You would
Right.
see, and do you think that there's other areas of our life that we do accept that kind of evidence that we shouldn't?
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, everything we know about the cosmos is based on blind faith.
Right.
It's all accepted blind faith. They haven't provided any evidence of anything. It's just that we were indoctrinated and we embraced it, and we believe it to be true. We don't know it to be true. That's the difference. See, to know something's true, it must be detectable by the five senses.
Right.
If it's not detectable by the five senses, you don't know if the thing is true or not.
All right, and you're giving somebody a pretty big gift, which is, here, tell me what's true. I'm no longer capable of determining for myself what's true. I need you to tell me. You're smarter than me. And really, if they, I maybe would feel a little bit different if you're talking about a scientist, or let's say it's an astronaut. Maybe that person's telling you what they saw, but the worst part of it all is the people who are telling you what's true and what's not, the people that'll come into your hangouts, come into mine, and tell us that we're idiots, they've never seen it either, which is the worst part of it all. They're getting secondhand information themselves and just declaring to you that it's true, and they know it's true, but they've never even experienced it either.
Exactly. I use a statement that I say all the time, and even flat earthers cringe when I say it, but I mean it. I'm a flat earther because I only experience the earth flat. That's my experience. That's what I've detected through my five senses. So I know that the earth is flat because I experience it flat.
Right.
I never experienced the earth as a globe. So if I don't experience something and it's not detectable through the five senses as a globe, why would I argue that it's a globe?
Right.
Because you've been indoctrinated to believe that it's a globe.
It's the only,
and that's the difference.
It's the only excuse. It's the only way you can argue that position, right? It's the only way you can say the earth is spinning is because you are putting your trust in somebody else, even though nobody has ever felt the earth spin. You're just giving it away.
Exactly. And there's no evidence. There's no tangible, objective evidence to show that we're actually spinning. So what is the debate about? See, we're debating their dogma.
Yep.
That's all we're doing. We're ignoring our five senses of detection because our five senses determine what's real. I believe they're God-given tools to know what exists outside of ourselves. So when we get into these debates, we're arguing dogmatic beliefs. I mean, just imagine a Christian arguing with a Muslim, right, about religion.
Mm-hmm.
There's never a right answer. It's circular. It just goes back and forth, back and forth. There is no right or wrong. It's just what this person believes and what this person believes.
Right.
But when you talk about flat Earth, we all experience the Earth flat. Yes, there's terrain changes, but guess what? It always levels out. No one on this planet experiences the Earth as a globe. No one.
Nope.
So what are you arguing about?
Yeah, it's great that you bring that up too, because I was just telling you before we went live, but it was just earlier today that I was thinking to myself that I think I often put too much pressure on myself because being somebody that came out early speaking about the flat Earth, I'm always having this constant nagging feeling that I've got to prove it to other people, and the problem with that is it's been proven to me. So that's a tough situation because you're always looking to how do I explain this? How do I show this to other people? How do I explain it? And that's a problem because if they just choose, basically it comes down to, like you said, it's words, right? They choose not to trust their God-given senses, and this is something I understand because, like I said, if you would ask me 2 months ago, I would have told you, no, I could show you tons of optical experiments that, optical illusions that show you that your eyes can't be trusted. And it was just about a month ago that I really looked at it and said, wait, hold on a second. I think that those, every time we've been fooled by those, it's simply science has drawn up a way to fool your senses on purpose and then tell you your senses don't work. But we know our senses work because you need to depend on them 100 times a day to save your very life. When you're in the car and you hear a horn, when you see somebody coming out in front of the street and you got to stop to not hit them, when you know not to touch the stove, when you know everything that you do that protects you from danger constantly is the perfect operation of your God-given senses. So they work in every single area. We trust them constantly. You wouldn't cross the street without trusting them. You wouldn't throw a ball up in the air to yourself without trusting them. You wouldn't cut a cucumber without trusting them because you're going to end up getting hurt. But when it comes to walking outside and looking at the stars, looking at the sun, which is clearly crossing my sky, clearly setting, you're saying now I'm going to abandon this group of skill set that has got me through every other facet of life. It has worked perfectly for me, but in this case, and then I looked at it and I said, well, what are the things that they tell us our senses don't work at? And it's always the things we can't tangibly go test.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. I would even argue that, how they do those trick tests to manipulate the senses?
Right.
They're not really manipulating the senses. They're manipulating the mind. If you really think about it. Because it's like...
Yeah, that's true.
Everything must go through a process in the brain. So if your eyes are playing tricks on you, I think that's the wrong terminology. Your mind is playing tricks on you. Because your mind determines what was detected. The senses do not determine what was detected. It just says something's there. You smell that? Something. You smell that. You see that. You hear that. You taste that. You touch that. It's just pointing at something that exists outside of yourself. Your mind is putting together and defining and determining the thing itself. So if anything is fallible and being tricked, it's your mind. Your senses don't have individualized brains. You only have one brain. So all processing of information occurs in the head, not in the eyes, not in sight, not in smell, not in taste, not in hearing, not in touch. So we're blaming our senses for being fallible when really all fallibility occurs in the mind.
Yep, I brought up right now, just showing on the screen the McGurk effect, which is something people have all seen before, which is exactly what you were just describing. What is failing us here? And I have the sound off just so we don't get any copyright. But here you can see the guy, and if we're looking at that, your brain's going to tell you that he's clearly saying ba. Because we can see that. We can see he's making the B sound with his mouth. Now there, you can clearly see he's making the F sound, fa. And what happens is in this, they call it a McGurk effect.
Right.
They simply have replaced the sound of him saying fa with ba. And your brain gets, I wouldn't even call it confused. What's happening is your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, right? Your brain is saying, this person is clearly saying fa, despite what the sound is, because I can see what he's doing with his lips and his teeth. It's not physically possible for somebody to be putting their teeth on the front of their lip like this guy is now and saying ba. So they for some reason try to pass this off as some sort of, your senses failing you, when that's not what's happening. Your senses are actually working perfectly like they're supposed to, doing what they're intended to do, and yet they're telling us that this is an example of our senses not working, when it's absolutely the opposite.
Exactly. and you think about it, all the manipulation of people occurs in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're constantly manipulating us and indoctrinate us here. So if you can ignore your God-given tools to know that which is real and what's true and bank on what they say, that's how you create a slave. You know, so they want us detached from our five senses. They don't want us to put any value in the detection of that which exists outside of ourselves. They want you to believe their version.
Right.
And the majority of us do.
Yep, and well, especially when they teach you that your senses can't be trusted, right? I mean, that's the backhand across the face by telling you, well, of course your senses can't be trusted because you look up in the sky and the sun looks fairly close and the sun looks fairly small. But guess what, idiots? The sun is 93 million miles away and the sun is a million times as big as the Earth. So when you hear that, and it's being taught from people that are in charge of science, it's being taught from people that supposedly are going through the scientific method, well, then, of course,
Right.
you immediately start thinking, oh, I guess my senses don't work because you know what? You're right. The sun looks close. The sun looks small. And they've
Right.
convinced you and everyone that your senses aren't working. But really, I have no reason not to trust my senses in that case. So to me, I don't ever feel like at a sunset that I'm falling backwards, which is,
Right.
if that's what they're telling us is true, then the sun is not actually moving anywhere. It's sitting out there and we are falling backwards, which is causing the sun to set. No one's ever felt that in the history of the world, yet 95%
Exactly.
of the world believes that's what's happening. Pretty
Exactly. We ignore our detection system. You know, I'm a security guy. I've been doing professional security for the last 25 years, right? And I've installed hundreds of cameras, motion sensors, mag locks, contact door alarms, you know, motion sensors and so forth. And in our industry, those devices that we set up in buildings are called sensors. You know, if someone breaches a door, it sets off a sensor.
Right.
And so what does that sensor do? It just detects the breach of the door.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't define the person coming through the door. It doesn't do anything. It just breach at this door. That's what an alarm system sensor does. To determine who walked through the door, we need our brains. You know, our brains are gonna manufacture and put those pieces of information together to determine who breached the door. You know, so I think we're giving our five senses a bad rap. Our five senses is the only way we could engage the external world. How would you engage the world if you didn't have five senses? You know what? I'll take it even further. Losing of your five senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. When you lose all five of these senses, you have one thing going on: death. Death is the losing of your five senses. Think about it.
Yeah.
And people forget that. You know, so five senses to use any tool. If you think of a telescope, you think of a microscope, you think of driving a car, anything we do in this world, we need our five senses. You must have your five senses, right? You know, various reasons.
You won't last
If you
very
eat
long
any-
if not. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you lose your five senses, you're dead.
Yep.
So they're telling you don't trust your five senses. It doesn't make sense. But
No.
that's their control technique. That's how they control us.
Right, because they certainly want you depending on them whenever they can, and on some
Right.
things they can't, they can't really fool me as far as if my stove is hot or cold. It's gonna be hot or cold. So any chance they see where they're like, oh, let's get in, let's change the mind, let's change the brain, let's change the thinking, so that we can take over the senses before they are actually actualized, or right before they come to fruition, which is like you said, we touch something hot, it still has to register with our brain that it's hot. We go outside, we see the sun setting, it still has to register
Right.
what's going on. And that's what they do. They take over that one thing, and that's what's scary, because it's the same thing with the media, right? I mean, we don't experience what goes on in other towns. I don't experience racism that might be going on in Baltimore. I don't experience a school shooting somewhere else in the country. So they know that, and so what they do is they try, and that's why they put it on the news. They put it into somebody's mouth so that they read it to me, and I have to watch these images because now my brain has sensed that happening, and now I believe that that's going on. They've been doing that for 100 years, 80 years, whatever it is, since the government has taken over the media, because they realized long ago, and if you're talking about before the media, hundreds of years ago, that's how you get a control of a humanity. That's how you get a control of a population. Change the mind. And make them question the very senses that they have. I mean, if you ask anybody, is there a lot of racism that goes on? They're going to probably say yes. Yet for me, I don't personally see it in my life. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in other people's lives. But I think what they try and do is they force everything on you as if you need to experience everything. You need to feel. They play with your heartstrings, right? When they have these false flag events and they put this mom up there who tells everybody they lost their daughter. Now every mom feels like it happened to them. So they just, it's sad how they know how to contact us, how to touch us. But I think it's something that can be defeated quite easily. That, and that's what we got to teach people how to do, or not teach them how to do, but tell them, show them that your senses save your life every day, all day.
Every single day.
Mm-hmm.
You can't know anything that's true without your five senses, without your five senses first detecting what the thing itself is. See, if you talk theoretical science, theoretical science is all about removing the five senses.
Yep.
Right? Five senses have nothing to do with theoretical science.
It's all about math, numbers on paper.
Science. Exactly. It's all about mental constructs. They sit down and they think and they come up with the idea of the Big Bang, right? And like I put in one of my last videos, I'm like, okay, I understand that that's an idea that someone came up with, but why would you teach it as truth?
Mm-hmm.
There's no one that was there when the Big Bang occurred. Why are they pushing theoretical science off as truth?
That's the problem. Yep.
Wow. You see what I'm saying? So they're selling to people the idea that they're so smart that you should ignore your five senses and listen to what they said. That's what it comes down to. You know how some people say that one of the reasons they're trying to say that the earth is a globe is to minimize humanity, to make it seem like we're nothing in the scheme of things, right?
That's one of them.
But they're doing that with science also. They're saying you're not intelligent enough. Your God-given tools are not intelligent enough to know the cosmos, unless you got a PhD and you're Neil deGrasse Tyson or Joe Rogan or whoever the hell you are. You know what I mean? It's stupid.
It's stupid.
It's really a dumb argument,
especially
and for people to fall prey to it. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, the one thing I when I don't like saying that is simply because I don't want to be considered crazy, and it was me 3 years ago. So I know how easy it is for people to fall. It's an absolute easy trap, and I mean, I thought, and I'm not saying astrophysicists aren't smart, because anybody who can keep those kind of numbers in their head and maybe do these calculations, maybe they're book smart, but they've never been to space any more than I have. And so all they have done is they've memorized the book about astrophysics better than I have. But technically speaking, if I take a Stephen King book off my shelf here and go through it numerous times, well, then I'm smarter than them in that subject, because now I've memorized the Stephen King book. That's all they've done. They've memorized this understanding that is not sensed the way it should be. It's simply believed, and you're right. It's sad because it's not that hard to realize that we need to detect, or that we need to trust our senses. It's not hard. It's right. I mean,
you got to ask why we have them. Why do we have senses? If we're not supposed to trust them, why do we have them? Well, you can't engage the world without them.
Right.
That's number one. You can't engage the world without a good sense of smell. You know what? Our senses are so important. Lose one. Lose one. Your entire perspective of the world changes.
You
Lose your
lose
sight.
one. Yep.
You know what? And I challenged someone on the live because they were telling me this was all bullshit what I was saying. I said, okay, let's do it like this. I want you to put a blindfold on for 1 hour and try to maneuver in this world. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. We have blind people that do it, but guess what? The other 4 senses
They pick it
increase.
up. Yep.
Their senses increase. Their sense of hearing goes through the roof. Their sense of smell, their sense of feeling and touch. It all goes through the roof just when they lose one sense. That's how important the 5 senses are.
Right. You ever tried
So
to rub
if
your
people-
finger on
I'm
Braille?
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, you ever tried to rub your finger on Braille? To us, it seems like, how the hell would somebody be able to determine what dots are where? Well, it's because their sense of touch has increased because they no longer have that sight. So that, yeah, you know, how important is that the senses even know, let's pick it up, let's help out this sense that's not working. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing that you do throughout your day that you aren't dependent fully on your senses. And yet, like I said, you walk outside and look at the stars, and all of a sudden you're willing to give your senses away because someone told you that you should.
Exactly. So it comes down to either you're going to believe them or you're not. So I learned to stop believing them. I understand what they're trying to do. See, when you say theoretical scientists aren't smart and intelligent, right? You got to ask yourself, they're smart and intelligent about what?
Mm-hmm.
Are they smart and intelligent about knowing reality? Or are they smart and intelligent about knowing their dogmatic beliefs? See, what's the difference between a priest that knows his Bible and a theoretical science that knows his theories and his formulas and his mathematics?
Right.
That's all stuff that people believe in, that they're studying. That doesn't make it true.
Nope. Think of how many years a
So
rabbi has put in. You know, a rabbi has put in years of study. They understand the Torah and everything. So if you're going to just hand your trust over to scientists, then you better be a Hasidic Jew as well, because that rabbi has put in all that time and effort learning the Torah backwards and forward. What's different about that?
That doesn't mean he knows truth.
Nope.
It just means he knows his book.
Right. And we should be able to, you know, let me see what you've studied there, and then I can read what he's done and say, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to believe that. Same thing I should be able to do with science. That, Neil, let me see your book, your astrophysics book. Okay, I'm reading this. Yeah, it doesn't really match my reality. You can believe that all you want, Neil. I'm not. The problem is then they, in this world, that person's allowed to laugh at you and call you stupid because you don't believe that scientist.
Yeah, because the indoctrination begins at such a young age. See, we were all indoctrinated with the globe in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in kindergarten as a child playing with the globe, you know, hitting the globe and watching it spin. And, you know, and the teacher pointing, okay, this is Australia, we're here, and this is Australia. And I remember the question. I'm like, well, why do people on the bottom of the ball don't fall off?
So you do remember asking that to? Did you? Remember,
Yes.
Do you remember asking that to
Yes.
your mom, to your dad?
Probably in the 2nd or 3rd grade in school.
I would love to
I
find
asked that
out.
question.
I would love to find out how many people, because I did the same thing. And the more I'm talking to some people, I'm almost positive that every single one of us did. That we all were taught it in class, and we, you know how class is. It's that that there's everyone else in class isn't questioning it, so you don't want to question it. But I think we might have all gone home. I'll ask people in the chat, does anybody remember not ever asking their parents if that was true? You just accepted it. The teacher told you, you're on the ball. Australia's down below. It's different for them.
Yeah.
They think. I just want to know, anybody in the chat, did you ever just accept it, or did everybody ask their parents? Did they all go home? Because I can almost remember where I was. And, maybe it's just a bad memory. I was walking home from school with my mom. She used to walk to get me. And I remember saying, is the Earth spinning? And she said, yeah, science has determined that the Earth spins. And I said, oh, all right. And just, you accept it. But I'm wondering if there's anybody that, ever remembers just accepting it. Maybe nobody did. Maybe nobody ever accepted it. And we, that person asked, that one person asked. That's crazy, because maybe there's more people than I thought that even asked.
I remember a test that I had in school where you had to draw the Earth and you had to name each continent. Um, and there were questions like the the spin, how do you get night and day and stuff like that. I remember that like yesterday, third, fourth grade. You know, and my thing was it didn't make sense, but I had to learn it. Because you were going to be tested on it. I mean, that's another thing. It's ironic that we're all tested on the globe.
It's ridiculous.
It's not only just taught to us, we are evaluated on how well we know the globe.
Which is completely the opposite of what science is. Science cannot.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll show you, speech after speech by Lawrence Krauss, all these guys that'll stand up in front of crowds and say, science cannot determine what is true. Science can only prove things to be false. Science isn't about, it's just about getting close. But yet, you sit in class and you don't have an option to not believe in that. It's taught to you as fact. That's pretty messed up, man. I mean, the other thing I was asked these guys on that hangout last night, that we are told that the world operates in relativity, right? Everything's relative. There's no absolute motion because there's nothing to measure it off of. Yet then they teach children, and you have to answer this on a test, that the Earth goes around the sun. In fact, if you think the other way around, you will be laughed at. You will be humiliated. Yet, relativity, the very idea of relativity, says there is no absolute motion. Everything's relative, meaning if you're on the Earth, the sun goes around the Earth. And if you're on the sun, the Earth goes around the sun. Yet they teach us. So, I mean, there's a contradiction in their very basic premise, which is everything's relative, you go around the sun. It's like, where'd you get that from? You can't have both those things. If I go around the sun, then that's an absolute motion, and it's not relative. But it just goes to tell you that it's all word salad, right? It's all messing with your mind and making you laugh at people who think that the sun goes around the Earth. You think this? No, you idiot! The Earth goes around this, and we spin, and everybody believes it, and it becomes this herd mentality. And got to change it. We got to get people to see that until your senses have failed you or proven you wrong, why would you abandon them? That's the thing. Because
you're outsourcing your intelligence. You're letting them define what's real and what's not. And I think, I can never stop talking about the five senses because it's one of these things that we all have.
Right.
You have it, and you can put all this stuff to practice, and it's so obvious that people think it's too simple, and they're like, no, we have to go further to prove that the Earth is flat. No, I really don't think we need to. I really don't. The globe is not detectable by the five senses. You cannot detect the globe through the five senses. It does not exist. You can detect that the Earth is flat through the five senses. It's pretty obvious, and when I say flat, and I always got to clarify this when I talk,
because people think you're talking about a piece of paper.
I let them know that terrain changes. You can go up, you can go down, but when we say the Earth is flat, it always levels out. So no matter how high we go up, no matter how far down in a valley we go, it always levels back out. You never experience curvature of the Earth. So if you never experience curvature of the Earth and it's not detectable through the five senses, the shit does not exist. It's that simple.
I mean, if you look at this picture here, and, did I put it up on the screen? Yeah, I did. Looking at this picture, and this is something, it's right here. I went to this picture on purpose. NOAA's Discover provides epic views of the Earth. So we're looking at this picture, and everything inside you should be fighting right now, as it does for me now. I actually look at this and I laugh because this breaks every rule in the book. It's screaming to you impossible that this is water. This is the ocean. Think of how big this grouping of ocean is here. It's trillions of pounds. It's hanging upside down, breaking everything that you know to be true. And if you accept that this is where we live, you've simply given up your senses, you've given up your ability to reason, and decided to give that to somebody else, and to just trust in their idea. Pretty scary.
Yeah, exactly. And the other weird part, I've gotten away from arguing science. I really have. And the reason why, they created the science.
Right.
They created it. So if we're going to argue, I mean, don't get me wrong, we can use their information against them. And flat earthers are really good at that, right? But they made that shit up. I mean,
Well, that's what I was.
it's like they're basing it on Kepler and Newton and all these Masonic people.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? How can objective, mathematical, scientific, theoretical, intelligent people all be in the same cult? All be in the same Masonic order?
Astronauts.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy for us to even engage in their buffoonery, because that's the way I see it.
It would be like, and this is what I told those guys last night, how well would you do in a debate with a Christian if the rules of the game were that the Bible was true? Well,
Exactly.
Nobody in their right mind would go up against the Christian, because you'll get destroyed, because they're getting to use the foundation beliefs that they go off of as the truth. Well, that's what we go up against with science. And that's why, I was pretty impressed when we came out of that last night, because even with those rules, David Weiss and I did really well, because we are going up against science. And that's kind of what tells me that it's not true, because even though they made it up, it's so outlandish that it can be defeated. Right.
Absolutely.
But you're right. I mean, I don't like arguing it either, because again, they're just going to, they use the name of forces to answer questions. If you say, I was telling the guy last night, okay, well, the equator spins 1,000 miles per hour, but the jet streams go 200 miles per hour in that direction. I said, how do they go faster than the spin of the earth? And the guy says, Coriolis force. I said, you cannot just say a word as the answer. The Coriolis force is supposed to come from the ball spinning, so you cannot just say that is what is caught. And they don't get it. And it's like, that you've already made up your mind of what the facts are. And that's why they go into these debates. They think they're just it should be easy, because how hard is that? I wish I got to argue. I mean, sometimes I wish I believed in the globe and my job was to just go out and argue with flat earthers, because how hard is it? You just go to Wikipedia, dude. Why don't you get a physics book? Why don't you look it up?
Pull out your science book.
Yeah, go back to school, dude. Get an education. That's all they have to say.
I mean, exactly. And the crazy part, they're minions. They're minions. See, NASA doesn't have to defend themselves. They have so many minions, so many indoctrinated, mentally ill people out there that embrace the dogma. It's literally dogma. Science is a dogma. They embrace the dogma and they fight tooth and nail to defend their religion that is presented by science and NASA.
It was fun when I went from believing in religion, then realized that was a mess. When I went to the science and then saw that to be a religion, I could not believe how funny it was. You want to trigger somebody who believes in science, say science is just a religion. They'll lose their shit. They lose their minds, and
they get mad.
And it's
so, it's true,
and it's so obvious. It's like, the funnier thing is that they like make fun of creationists, and it's like, you believe in the Big Bang. That is creation. What the hell are you talking? Yeah. There was nothing here, then there was something. That means something was created, and they'll laugh at Christians who believe in creation when they believe the same thing. And they believe they have their holy book, they have their saints, Saint Newton, Saint Neil deGrasse. They've got these holy saints that can do no wrong. It's a religion. It's a dogmatic. There's certain foundational beliefs, like the ball Earth, that cannot be questioned. Just like in Islam, Muhammad's a prophet. that cannot be questioned. You're not allowed to be Islamist and not believe that. Same thing with the they're saying, well, you can't be
with Jesus.
Right, or Jesus with exactly. So the globe is the one for science. You cannot, and gravity, right? You can't question gravity if you want to be scientific, even though all these things are happening. It's holding all these planets in motions and everything, and to prove it, they do this. You idiot! It's like that's what's keeping the Earth going around the sun. That's what's keeping the moon. Is my pencil dropping? Thank you very much, guys. You're very intelligent. I always say it that the scary thing about science is that it really does, and I'm not calling anybody stupid. I'll call myself stupid before I'd ever call anybody else. But it is the scary part is if somebody is stupid, then the most easy out for them in life is to simply believe in science, because they can come across, they can go into be keyboard warriors, go into your comment section And they don't have to have a bit of intelligence. They don't have to have a bit of knowledge. They can just go in there and say, "Flat Earth, you idiot, retard! Don't procreate. Go drink bleach." And for whatever reason, they can walk away and sleep well at night, feeling like they pulled one over on you. They told you were wrong, and that's a scary thing, because you don't want to give dumb people an easy way out, because really they should be trying to increase their knowledge, not shut down and say, "I'm now going to defer all my knowledge to men who are smarter than me, and I can get away with it." They can even debate you, because they'll just say, "Wikipedia link, Wikipedia, gravity, you idiot." And I see a lot of that in this flat Earth movement. There's a lot of people, you try and bring something up, tell them that the sun is 3 million miles away or 3 million miles further during the summer, they'll laugh at you, thinking that you're wrong. You're like, "No, you see, you don't even understand the model. You're just arguing science. You don't know the science. You just argue." It scares me, because that's an easy out for people, and that's why they've got, man, they're just full of members. They got science has got all the
you want to
minions.
see something funny? I got some live hangouts where I'm speaking to Tim Osmond.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Tim Osmond, he always comes into my chats or whatever, you know, because when I do a live hangout, I just put the link out there.
Right.
You know, I tell all the haters and the, you know, this is my motto.
Mm-hmm.
Haters love me. You know what I mean? So,
and I like that about you. You don't have no fear when it comes to
no fear, right? Because
not?
I'm not defending a mental position.
Right.
See, everybody feels that they got to defend something. I got to defend flat Earth. I got to defend globe Earth. I got to defend. When in reality, half of us don't know what the hell's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I said, you know what? Let me go back to the basics. What can I tangibly prove?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's how I landed on this 5 senses argument. So when a guy like Tim Osmond comes into my chat, he wants to talk the cosmos. You know, he wants to talk the cosmos.
Right.
He wants to talk about science. And I never do.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, how do you know Polaris is X number of miles away? You know, I do stuff like, and he gets so angry. He gets frustrated. He usually hangs up, and then he comes back. And I'm saying, I'm not trying to say you're right or wrong. I'm saying that's none of that stuff is tangible.
Right. He's
You
coming
can't
in.
prove it.
He's coming
you know?
in with facts that you haven't already agreed to accept, and trying
Right.
to use those as, you know, well, we see these stars that are so far away doing these. It's like, well, okay, you're already starting with facts that we've never proven, me and you. So, you know,
Right.
that's the problem, is that we got to get these guys to realize, you know, for me, you don't teach children, like you said, in kindergarten, that they live on a ball, unless somewhere down the line you're going to start showing them all the reasons why you taught that as such a fact. Right. And that's the thing that ultimately people should really look at. Look how long we've been doing this. I've been doing it 2.5 years, and I've not seen tangible evidence of the Earth being a ball, yet
Right.
we were all taught it as absolute fact. It's a idiotic belief to believe otherwise, but there's no evidence of it. What is that? Why are we teaching children that? If it was real, and that's another thing too, the lies that they tell us, right? Oh, the water goes down the opposite way in the other hemisphere, and basically they're just you don't need to lie to get the truth across. The truth is just the truth. That's what it is. It will always be true. End of story. Yet for some reason there's got to be these little lies to get the globe across. You know, look at that video I did probably 2-3 months ago, maybe even 4 months ago at this point, where that college sent a balloon up, did the test with a GoPro lens, and somehow the news markets got a hold of it, and every news market put out, you know, college science class shows the curvature of the Earth. And I made a video about it, and then the guy that made the video said, we knew we put a GoPro camera on that. We never said anything about that. But it's just one of those things that the media grabs, like, we got to tell this lie. We got to put this lie. Mm-hmm. You don't need to do that. If the Earth's a ball, the Earth's a ball. You don't need to take fake footage with a curvature lens because you're using a fisheye and force it down people's throats. That means you're pushing a falsity. An agenda. Absolutely.
Right.
I don't come home from the store and make up stories to my wife where I was, because I don't have anything to hide. If I did come home and say, and I make up some story, probably because I'm hiding something. And so when we see them do things like that, the question needs to be, all right, jackasses, you're hiding shit because you're not telling the truth. You're not saying, hey, this college class sent up a balloon and filmed the Earth. You're saying this college class went out and proved the curvature of the Earth when we all can see it's a curvature lens. I mean, a fisheye lens. Those things to me are so hugely telling, because you don't need to lie to me to tell me the truth. And they constantly lie every turn. They lie to me to tell the truth. And that's not how the truth is told. The truth is just is.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Let me also say one thing. I brought up Tim Osmond's name earlier. I also had some great discussions with Tim Osmond. So I don't want to be one dimensional. We've had he gets mad and he hangs up, but there were times when he actually listened to some of the stuff I had to say, and I listened to some of the stuff he had to say. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know he's like the infamous terrorist of the flat Earth community, but I've found a way to deal with him
on his level
by not allowing his BS to interfere with my live hangouts. So I just wanted to say that, to get that out there, because he pops into my live hangouts all the time.
I think it's important to point out, and I just was on his, I don't know, maybe it was 2 weeks ago or whatever. We didn't do much interaction, him and I, but really, I wish that I could have a conversation with him more, because when I have had a conversation with him, it's gone fairly well, and I like those kind of not confrontational, but I like the discussions. For me, it really sucks that there's not really any ball earthers that I've found that I can have a sit down like we're talking now, to where we just be able to bounce some things off each other. And I know you believe this, and get along. I thought for a little while that was going to be Red's rhetoric way back 2.5 years ago. And it turned into basically him setting me up by saying, hey, yeah, let's come on my channel. Let's talk about it. Let's talk. And then I get there and it's, call me every name in the book. It's like, all right, I got to get used to this. But with Tim Osmond, it's just the sniping he was doing at the Hangouts. And I told him, I said, I can't have conversations with you because what I'm doing is I'm saying that that's okay that you're doing that. And I don't think that it is. So, but I do wish that I did get to talk to him more, because he's at least, I do think he's looking into it. I think he obviously has his belief that he believes that we live on a ball. But then again, I believe we don't. So there's really no difference there. I'm going to go into the conversation believing that we don't. He's going to go in. And there's no problem with that, right? I mean, I've told people all the time, I don't know how many times I have to say this, we don't have to all think alike. That we don't. In some areas, if you're talking about absolute truths, well, for the most part, I would like to get to the place that we all know where we live and we can all kind of agree on how it works. That's not the case now. But when it comes to different opinions of, who are you going to pick for president, or what basketball team you like, whatever it is, the world is awesome because we all have different opinions. That's why it's a great time to hang out with friends, because they're going to tell a joke that you haven't heard. You're going to laugh. They're going to bring up something that you wouldn't have thought of. So I think people try too hard to get everybody to feel the same way. Do you believe in the Holocaust? Oh, you don't? This guy's a shill. It's like, dude, just relax. You can discuss it. You can talk about it. It doesn't matter if they don't believe. If somebody believes children died at Sandy Hook, then have a conversation with them. It doesn't mean you need to cut that person off and say, oh, I'm done with this person. I see that way too much. I just think it's okay we don't believe the same things.
See, I think that's part of the problem. People are interested in pushing their beliefs.
Absolutely.
But they don't understand what belief is. See, belief is embracing and accepting something in the absence of evidence. See, when you have proof of something, you don't need to believe it.
Right.
When something is true and you know it to be true, you don't belief is not required.
So the only question I would have there, though, is if I told you, does Australia exist? Have you ever been there?
No.
Okay, so if I asked you, does Australia exist, do you believe that, or do you know that it does?
I would believe that. Now, I'm not saying beliefs are not something we shouldn't do.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
Do I know it to be true?
Right.
The answer is no. I don't know it to be true.
That's what I was
But I do believe it exists.
Correct. That's how I am. Right. I mean, I have enough evidence that has led me to the belief that it exists, and I would say, and that's where it gets touchy, because I would say I know it exists, but as far as tangibly, as far as I've been there, I've stepped foot there, no. But it's as close as you can get that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I'm not saying belief doesn't serve a purpose.
Right.
I'm saying people believe in things, but they pass it off as truth.
Right.
I think one exercise humanity needs is being able to distinguish between the things we believe and the things we know to be true.
Right.
See, there is no even playing field with globe, earth, and flat earth. We know the earth is flat. Why? Because we experience the
Right.
earth flat. We don't experience it as a globe. So for them to say they know the earth is a globe is disingenuous because they've never experienced it.
It's the other way around, and you would need to show me the evidence that I live on the ball in order for me to change my knowing that the earth is flat. No, I totally get that.
Exactly. And it would have to be objective, not your subjective ideas.
Do you think that it's possible to know any part of history is true? Or do you think that's always a belief?
Good question.
The reason I ask that is because
did I experience it? Like, if you talk about history,
no, let's say over 100 years ago.
No, if I didn't experience it, no.
Right. Yeah, if we experienced it. And I think that's part of the problem too, is I don't think people realize that we constantly change our beliefs. You know, how you felt about World War II or Pearl Harbor
Right.
or 9/11, and yet we still inflict some sort of disdain for people that don't have your current beliefs, but we don't realize that 10 years ago I didn't think 9/11 was an inside job. So for me just to think of somebody in a wrong way because they don't have that belief, I just think I see that too much. People want to push their beliefs on everybody, like, no, this happened, and no, Gulf of Tonkin, and Kennedy didn't die on that day. It's like, well, let's have a discussion about it. We can talk about it, but it doesn't mean that and people just come across like they are smarter because they know Kennedy didn't die that day, and I believe he did. But again, let's talk about it. And I think I like what you said about Tim Osmond, because I do think that's one thing that's missing right now from this discussion is conversations between opening up that channel of bouncing things off each other. That's all we want to do, right? You were saying earlier, we're just discussing things. That's it.
Right. We're sharing. All we're doing is sharing. See, if you think you're doing more than sharing, you're missing the whole purpose of this.
Right.
Why? Because you're not an astronaut. You're not traveling through space. You're not doing none of that stuff. Well, do we even know that space exists? I mean, it's so many unknowns.
Right.
So if you run to your side of the field or fence and you get stern and you have this position, you have this mental position that you feel you have to defend, that's part of the problem.
Right.
I think we should be truth seekers. A lot of us want to call ourselves truthers, but a lot of us don't act like it.
Totally.
All we're really doing is defending a belief system. And I think that's part of the problem. Like you said earlier, beliefs are constantly shifting.
Right.
So if beliefs are constantly shifting, why are you defending it? Now, my whole thing is, let's distinguish between what's true, what we know to be true, versus what we don't know to be true, or what we may believe. So I may believe something, I just may not have enough evidence to show that it's true. So let's go to what we do know is true. We know we experience the earth flat.
Right.
We know this. I mean, this is how we live our lives every single day. So to ignore our experiences of engaging this world flat is
disingenuous.
To ignore. It's disingenuous.
Yeah, absolutely is.
You're outsourcing your intelligence.
And then you're judging other people on whether or not they're willing to give away their senses and take somebody else's word for it. And that's a terrible way to handle things. And we need to be okay with saying I don't know.
Right.
If I say that, it would be conjecture. I hear too many people saying infinite plane, dome, all these things. Make sure just start that out with I don't know. If somebody said, Jaron, do you believe the ice wall? I think that there's a wall of ice that holds the water in, but I've never seen it. And so anything beyond that, if you want to talk to me about it, I'll tell you what I think it might be, but I don't know anything.
Right.
Beyond that, I have no idea. That stuff.
We have to remain humble.
Yep.
If we don't remain humble, we become what they are.
Right.
See, I think that's part of the problem. I think a lot of us, we're developing dogma. I'm talking about flat earth.
Right.
We're developing dogma to present as an alternative to their dogma.
So would you say
why are we doing that?
So
You
would
know,
you
the
say
hell
that
with that.
saying
I'm
that the
sorry, go
Earth?
ahead.
Yeah. Would you say that saying the Earth is flat though is that? Would you consider that a dogma?
Absolutely not, because that's how we experience it.
Right.
If we didn't experience the Earth flat, yeah, that would be a dogma. But we experienced the Earth flat. We're being truthful based on our experience. They're not being truthful because they never experienced the Earth as a ball.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying you're too stupid to notice it. These smart guys know that it's a ball. Go with what they say. Ignore your experiences. That's all they're saying.
And they can explain it. It explains it right here on this, theoretical equation and this math problem.
Right.
That that's what they consider to be true. That numbers on paper, which for anybody who doesn't know, I don't know why people still believe this. That numbers are a human invention. They're not.
Absolutely.
They're not a divine gift. There's no saying that our double digits at 10. Nothing says that would have been the same way if we all had our brains wiped right now and we had to start all over. There's nothing saying 10 would be the double digit. We could make the double digit at 6, 7, and it wouldn't be named that. But I'm just saying a lot of people think that there's some sort of math equations in the universe, and they're not. It is a language meant to describe, and it is a good language because it describes things better than I can use English, better than somebody can use Spanish. Math is a more exact language that there is no if, ands, or buts about number one. The number one is number one. It is one, not two. It's not. But my words can, I can say one, and I maybe am doing WON. I won a game. Not one is in the number. So it's just a more concise, perfect language way of describing things, but it doesn't create reality. It helps explain reality. You can use it to explain reality. You can say, we can trade this money back and forth. We can divide it by 3 people and get out to the correct number that we need to split it up. But there's nothing about that says that then I can take it outside of that and say, okay, well, here I did this math equation. It proves reality. I had a physics teacher who told me he could write an equation for an elephant hanging off a cliff by a blade of grass that would work out. And, I thank him for telling me that, because at some point in my high school career, I remember thinking, oh, okay, that's good to know that if you can do that with math, then you can do anything. And he basically said that, if you work around with the equations, and that's all they do. That's what those guys did, trying to read up on relativity. It's just Einstein pulling numbers back and forth till he could say, all right, this worked out. It must be true. Is it true?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
And his minions just jumping on board and accepting it. I mean, we have to look at what math truly is. First of all, I think we need to distinguish between sciences, all right? There's one thing called the applied sciences, and then you have the theoretical science. Applied sciences, such as architecture and buildings and airplanes and cell phones and all, those are sciences that are applicable, right? We can use them. They're tangible in the real world. Your theoretical science is all bullshit.
All of it.
What I mean by that is you can't apply it. No. It's either the only people that understand it is the people that present it to you.
Yep.
So it's a reason why you can't understand their language.
Can you believe that's a job? There's people who get paid to write shit down that they'll never prove, that they believe in string theory, believe in all. It's theoretical nonsense.
Dude, they said that on the molecular level, on the lowest level, we're ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
No way.
I'm like, I did a video about that. I'm like,
my favorite one is that they say, an atom is the smallest thing there is. And you go, okay. And then they say, and inside the atom, there's a nucleus. And you're like, wait, what? What do you mean? If there's something that's the smallest there is, there's nothing inside that, jackasses. You can't.
It's all.
And there's
it's
orbits, electron and neutron. Yeah. And that's what I think that took me a long time to realize too, is I dare people out there. And by the way, somebody said in the chat, I wrote it down, that we discovered math and did not invent it. So I don't know what they meant by that. Maybe they can say exactly. I don't know what you mean by we discovered math. If we all had our brains wiped and we woke up tomorrow, we could line up 4 or 5 bananas on the ground, and then you could make tally marks or put sticks or rocks. So I don't know if that's discovering or inventing. I don't think it's really discovering it. But when you take things like, hey, thank you, $2 from somebody. That's awesome.
Nice.
Somebody put, where does this money go? That's their estimate. Into
Somebody
the
gave
box.
you $100 too. That was cool.
I couldn't see this. I wish I knew who that was. Did you see who their name was?
Nah, I don't see it in the chat.
I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, that was earlier though.
So, equations like infinity, that's the kind of thing that they throw out there,
Yeah.
which doesn't exist. There's no infinity, because you can always just say plus one. So, somebody says, oh, but they actually think, that you've heard the whole infinite monkeys theory, right? Like if you were typing in these guys they're sitting talking about it like it's like that's something we need to all consider, that this is something, it's nonsense to me. Nobody can ever, who's going to prove that? It's the same thing, right? You're just trusting somebody who's saying, if we took an infinite amount of monkeys and put them on a typewriter, that one of them would type a Shakespearean play. Great. You can say it all you want. They'll never be tested. It's completely useless to even think about these guys.
I'm still trying to understand the billions and trillions of stars. I want to know who counted them.
Well,
I ask questions like that. Okay, how do you know? Like, there's so many galaxies and space, and it's all BS. It's all.
I can't think of the name of somebody's paradox
conjecture.
or something. Yeah, somebody's paradox or something is already figured out that. Just think of how many times you could take a pen and dot the sky. Probably, 1 trillion times at night. If you just went and dotted the sky, maybe 10 trillion. But regardless, they say there's 10 sextillion stars. So why isn't the whole night sky lit up white and brighter than the day? Doesn't make any sense.
You wouldn't see no black.
No, it should be completely... And that whole idea of... It took 2 billion years to get here. Well, didn't I spin around on the ball Earth a bunch of times? How is it still there when I come across it? Doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. Well, I've dove into the history of this, and I've come up with one name, and I don't know if anyone else has agree with me on this, but I really believe all this started with Pythagoras.
Me too. Yeah.
I really do. I believe Pythagoras is what brought us mathematics as we know it today, and the ideas that where mathematics is the language of God. Pythagoras is one of the first people to say that. Now, a lot of people don't know that when you talk about Pythagoras, you're talking 2,500 years ago, before Christ.
Right.
This is right around the time of Buddha, and Krishna in India. You know what I mean? So the Greeks or the Western world had their wise man that came back from his world travels and brought this thing called mathematics that he learned in ancient Egypt. He did 22 years in ancient Egypt. So he comes back, he starts a cult, and his whole thing is everything is number, everything is mathematics. He's doing philosophy and mathematics and so forth. He becomes a popular cult or whatever. Fast forward, Plato comes, embraces this Pythagoras guy, carries over to Aristotle, and it comes all the way down to guys like Kepler and Galileo and all these guys. They're all of the same order. They're all linked to
the Pythagorean schools. Yeah,
they're all linked to Pythagoras. They all built off of his ideas. Now, I did a video where I dived in on the Masonic order because I learned that the Masonic order heavily embraces the ideas of Pythagoras.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? This stuff, science, mathematics, it's nothing but a cult. Theoretical science.
Here's the crazy thing for me.
It's all a cult.
Here's the thing for me. I have a little different opinion in the fact that I don't even know any of those guys existed. I think that's all been a thing that I think they built that story so that it looks like humanity learned those things in time. And I can't prove that. It's the same. That's what I was asking about history earlier.
That's a good point.
Nobody can really say it, but it's just when you go back, being that I, own a bookstore and have books, I tried to look for those books and said, when did those guys write? And they were all rewritten in 1600. And it just seems like it's a convenient little story. And when you really look at it, there was people back in, around 0 or before that had beliefs they would have never had back then. the whole idea of Aristophanes, like they tell us, and he put the sticks in the ground and the shadows. They
That
just
was
tell,
bullshit.
yeah, they just tell that topical story, but they don't think about the fact that back then those guys thought the sun went around the earth. So what that means is that Aristophanes thought that the sun was so far away, infinity away, that the rays were coming in parallel, but then he also thought it went around the earth. Like that means that person is stupid. Nobody even today would think that. Like, oh, the sun is an infinite distance away and it goes around me. And no, he didn't think that. So that's where I think they got some things wrong. And I don't know if history, good luck with history, man, that it is so screwed up. I mean, they have people that are historians that they'll just not agree on anything. They don't, Marcus Aurelius, well, he was here, but this guy described him wrong. And this guy, Aristophanes, there's no books that survived that he wrote. They just, all those books are all copies off of copies off of copies. But no, I totally know what you're saying. It is that Pythagorean school that led to, or if you go back to like Hiram Abiff and that kind of stuff, the Masonic order might have even been before that, but it seems like that was all part of the same thing. And that's what, with the G and the square and compass, and it seems to me that is the ancient belief. I think the Masons know, obviously, that the Earth's flat. That's why they say on the level. And they have on their two pillars, right, the big celestial sphere and then the Earth sphere, because that's what's allowed them to control humanity for forever, is the ideas behind those big balls, those big globes. And then they've got this little stepping order, right? You've ever seen the Masonic, there's this Masonic staircase that kind of goes through, and it goes through each level, and you can just see exactly that's the way they think. And we're the bottom group that is not ready to ascend to the great beliefs that they have. Such dirtball.
And the ironic part about that, and I got my latest video is out about this. The five senses is some of the first 5 steps that they must go through.
Oh, that's funny. I never even realized. You're right.
Yep. So the Masons understand to know reality, you have to be in tune with your 5 senses.
Right. I didn't even think about it. You're right.
They already know that.
The lowest steps are the 5 senses. And they kind of describe it like it's a lowly thing, whereas, we're kind of saying it's essential. That's funny. I didn't even really put those together, and it worked out perfectly for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they go into the 7 liberal arts.
Right.
Grammar, rhetoric, logic,
geometry, or
arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So
and
all that stuff is in line with what we got today.
And Pythagoras was big on the geometry, right? That was all,
right.
The thinking of numbers was...
Remember, he's the one that brought if you believe history.
Right. We can talk about
He brought the idea that everything is number.
Everything's numbers. And geometry. Everything is shapes and
right.
angles.
Everything.
And where really the Earth is not. I mean, if you really look around, there's, like they say, there's no straight lines. There's no circles. Circles don't exist.
Right.
Really, that whole idea, it may be a way to approach reality. But, really, it's crazy to go back and look at Newton and all those guys and, how much they hated others. Like, that's crazy because they just didn't have the same beliefs. I don't think that Newton hated algebra. Newton hated it. He didn't think it was a good practice, especially at the beginning of his life. Towards the end, he did, pick it up a little bit. But it's just crazy the things that, because that was what, was it, who thought of algebra or who used it a lot? I'm thinking Cartesian.
I forgot his name.
Descartes. Sorry, Descartes.
Descartes came up with algebra?
Well, that's, we get the Cartesian plane and the XY coordinates from him, but they were basically against each other. They both didn't see each other's ideas as being equally important, which today they kind of are. I think algebra and geometry are both used a lot, but at that time they were like arguing against each other. One was saying, no, don't use geometry, that's not right. The other one's saying, no, don't use algebra, that's not right.
Right.
And ultimately all that stuff came together. But I mean, really go back. People just need to read those books. Like you said, when you do the history, that's what really, my whole path has led me to my beliefs now. But when I saw what science was doing the whole time, it became obvious that it wasn't science. That's the biggest thing for me that I ever could find was, go look at Ellis, who's one of the probably top 5 physicists in the country, and the quote where he says, and the thing he's pushing right now is that there's a lot of models that explain the observations. However, cosmologists chose a certain model based on philosophical ideas. And he even comes out and says, honestly, I don't have a problem with that, meaning he doesn't have a problem that they're doing that. He just thinks the fact that they're lying about it is the problem. And the people need to recognize, so you got a cosmologist, one of the top 5 in the country, telling you that cosmology, which is a science, is attempting to hide something. And that's all you should need to hear. When I saw that and started looking into George Ellis, I saw his struggle. He still believes in the ball, which I don't care. People can have different beliefs. He believes in infinite space, but he's able to recognize that the observations that they're making work on other models. Now, they don't tell us that because they want you to believe in the heliocentric Earth and the Big Bang, and so they don't tell you that. But he's the one trying to say cosmology is trying to hide the fact that there's other models that work. One of them could be, for sure, a geocentric Earth, but another could be a flat Earth. We just haven't figured out how to explain it to those guys yet. But like you said, it's not that important. I need to get away from that because I know it.
You already know the Earth is flat. You experience it flat. I mean, that's our leverage. I mean,
absolutely.
Everything else is kind of speculation. It's like
this guy's last night. I said to him, no experiments ever proven the Earth to spin. Well, it spun. It spun at that moment, though. Those guys were pissed. I mean, they were just all up in arms. Come on, what are you talking about? And but then I gave him the experiments and said, or David actually said to them, get back to us with the experiment that proves the Earth spins, because they didn't have one. I mean, they would again go with the force, right? Coriolis force. It's like, no, that's not an experiment that proves that the Earth spins. You can't just call up a force whenever you want. That's what they always do too, and that's what the globe minions, if you will. But you were totally right when you said earlier, NASA, they have not had to answer to one thing in 2.5 years. I've made videos saying, you guys get $53 million a day. You don't even have a 24-hour camera on the Earth. They've never had to say so much as, this is the reason why we don't have a camera on the Earth for this reason. They simply have their minions in the chat and in everywhere saying how stupid I am and how wrong I am and how hard it would be for them to do it. And so that's the thing that sucks, because I've said this before. Imagine if 6 months ago, or 6 months into the flat Earth thing, if all of humanity would have said, you know what? These 5% of people that are talking about NASA, they have some interesting points. Let's make NASA prove it. And as humanity, we realized there's a benefit there that and I don't care if Reg Rhetoric and all his friends say, hey, NASA, these idiots here think that you're faking shit. Can you do this, this, and this to prove it? And then we would come out at the end of that and we would either be shown that it's true or we would uncover the deception. But instead, they do the worst possible thing you can do, which is start fighting on behalf of the people we're saying are lying to us. And that's what's happened now, is now we have 2 layers to get through. We're saying, hey, those people over there are lying to us. And then they're stepping in front and saying, well, you got to get through me first. It's like, no, they're lying to you too, jackass. So it's it's just ridiculous.
Exactly. They're the soldiers and the defenders of their religion. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what they are. They're the frontline people, and that insulates their royalty and their generals and their strategists. We got to go through the infantry to get to NASA.
Exactly. Got to get through that front line.
And that infantry is all the indoctrinated minds from public school and private school. And
once
they're
they believe
insulated. And don't get it twisted. They know there's an opposition out there.
Oh yeah.
But they just don't feel the need to address us, because their minions will address us.
And that would bring attention to it. And they want it to be, why would we ever address that? It's so ridiculous. You guys take care of it. I always call it the 90%, 10% rule, which if you have 90% of people that believe something and only 10% that don't, you no longer have to worry about it, because it will police itself. Anytime a couple people go from the 90 to the 10 side, well, they'll get made fun of so much that some will punch back, and it's just going to always maintain that level. That's where it is. It's 90-10. 90% of people believe NASA every word that they say, 10% don't, and NASA feels comfortable in just allowing that to continue. They don't even have to answer. Why would they?
I mean, tell me a test you ever took that you had a 90 on and you didn't get an A.
Right. Nope.
So I mean, if I was NASA and I had that position, shit, just sit back and relax and say, well, whatever, that 10% is gonna dwindle down when we let out this new hoax video of the 7 new planets or whatever. You know what I mean?
Nonsense.
So it's all BS.
And they keep
What
you
can
on
we-
a carrot in front of your
sorry.
nose. Well, they keep us looking in the future. It's the same thing we were told when we were, I was born in the 80s. It was all about, we're going to have flying cars in 2000. We're going to go to the moon. And it's always in the future. I just saw an article the other day. They're going to go to Neptune and whatever else. And I was like, oh boy, these jokers.
Yeah.
And I looked, it said 2034. I'm like,
Right.
they can't
Really?
they can't decide what they're going to do tomorrow. And you're going to plan something 17 years in advance. I mean, what a joke. And you know what? They'll get funding for it, and it'll get put in their little kitty, and they'll never be talked about again. And then in 2034, they'll be telling people, yeah, we're going in 2046. So I want to end that, and I want to, or prove it. If it's true, then it's true. I'm not trying to hide anything that's true. That would
Right.
be the worst. That's the absolute last thing I want to do. And, people may come at me and say, well, Jaron, you want the earth to be flat. And that's not true, because it is an indoctrination that I don't want the earth to be flat, because it means that I was indoctrinated, that I was lied to. And then I have to look
Think
at
about-
everything.
Think about the mind of an individual to say that. Why would you even share that idea with a human being? If I thought Jaron wanted the earth to be flat, right? Why would I say that?
Because that's the only thing they can
because
rationalize.
If you want it or not, that's irrelevant.
Right.
It either is or it isn't. So if we're experiencing the earth flat and they're saying it's not flat,
Correct.
there's a contradiction, there's a conflict. So
And there's such a big
ignore our
difference.
experiences and just believe science? I mean,
No way.
it's so simple to me.
And there's such a big
I
difference
just see it as
between
simple.
if you're fighting on behalf of the going truth, there's no need to do that. The people who are fighting on
Right.
behalf of the globe is true if it's true. Whether or not you fight on behalf of it,
Right.
whether or not you run around and tell us how much of a globe it is, if it's true, it's true. Yet they're trying to block us from doing flat earth tests. One of the things was we had Victor Brewer on Globebusters this weekend, and he's going to be doing a laser test, and he's borrowing a laser from some university. And he couldn't say what university it is, because we knew that the globe believers would call the university and tell them that that's what it was going to be used for, which is so ridiculous, because if they're so confident in their globe, wouldn't they want the laser to be borrowed so that this test could be done and prove their globe? That's how scared they are of their own beliefs in science, that they don't want us doing the science that should prove what they believe.
They don't want to be associated with anything that's against the status quo. That's what it comes down to.
Right, and that's not science. That's dogma.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
religion. That's the sad
Yeah,
thing.
because science is not science.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you cannot do any science in this country without funding. Funding comes from 2 places. It comes from the government and it comes from corporations, right?
Absolutely.
For the most part.
Yeah.
So if you're doing stuff that's going to piss off the government or piss off corporations, you don't get any funding. So your science falls by the wayside. So a lot of these scientific organizations or universities or whatever, they don't want to be a part of none of that, because anything that's controversial, because they're always in fear of losing their funding.
Yep.
So I think a lot of times people don't realize all the science that we hear about and we know about, it's all government funded. It's all corporate funded.
All of it. Who else is going to pay them?
Yeah, who else is going to pay for it? So if you're imagine that you're a scientist, right? And you're in direct opposition of all this stuff. How could you possibly get that information out?
And you know what? They don't get that. Scientists don't. We were talking about that with those guys yesterday. NASA employee, SpaceX employee. And the guy asked me, what do you think about LIGO? What do you think? And I said, Well, LIGO found gravity waves because it cost them, $500 million. So what are they going to do? Are they going to build a contraption to recognize gravity waves and then say, "Oh, sorry, we didn't find any"? Do you really think that they're going to get funding anymore, or you think they're going to find exactly what they got funding for? And the guy's like, "Oh, it doesn't work. Science doesn't work like that. Scientists go to work every day to prove things wrong." I'm like, dude, that's what you were taught. You can't just say
that's
that.
the blind faith.
Right. It's just they don't understand that peer review is the worst thing. I said, you're telling me that you have so much faith in humanity that you think there's a group of 400 men who have spent their entire lives talking about the heliocentric model, and I'm going to issue a paper or submit a paper that's going to say the Earth is flat. They're going to all read it and say, "Oh, I guess all of our 400 careers have been about bullshit. Let's let this paper go through." I said, it's not the way it works. It's not human nature. They cannot let something from outside come in and spoil the status quo. It's just like evolution, right? Evolution, it has to be taught the way it's taught. People ask sometimes, like, why do they keep teaching evolution as a fact? It's because it has to be. Because if it's not, then it will be exposed for what it is, which is conjecture and a idea that has no evidence at all. It's got,
absolutely.
It's got, visual evidence. I mean, you can look at a certain bird and say, well, that bird looks like it came from that bird. Or, hey, have you ever looked at an ape smoking a cigarette? An ape smoking a cigarette looks like a human being. It looks like a human being.
Right.
But it's because we're all from the same maker and we all have the same genetic makeup, the same building blocks. It doesn't mean that we evolved from apes or that we evolved from an amoeba. But that's the way they teach it.
No species has evolved from another species, right?
Never. No, and I don't even
think... They don't have no evidence of that. That's just all speculation. See, they pass these theories off as truths.
As facts, yep.
That's the number one problem. Facts and it's true, it's true, it's true. And what happens is when our children learn this stuff and they grow up believing this stuff,
right?
It's true to them, and they hold it as the gospel, literally.
And I'm not saying don't teach it. If you want to teach evolution, that's fine. I don't care. Because it's an interesting idea, so teach it, but don't teach it as fact. And they make it to the point, if you're a teacher and you want to come out against, you'll lose your job. You will lose your job if you don't believe in evolution. That's not science. I don't mind if we teach children, hey, some people believe in this creation story. Some people admit they don't know. Science says that it's evolution, but they're missing some of the facts. If we taught real science like it is, then I would love it. But that's not what they do. They've already got their rules. They've already got their dogmas, and they teach them as fact. These theoretical scientists or physicists will go around and tell you that they can go back to the 1/1,000,000th of a second after the Big Bang. That's a fact. Like, oh, we knew everything came into existence, and there it all was. It's like, dude, if you can say that and look at yourself in the mirror, then somebody needs to slap you. You cannot say you knew what the hell happened.
It's one thing to say it to yourself in the mirror, but if you're willing to believe it, just because this person said it, that's the bigger problem.
Right.
They're believing stuff just because it's coming out of the mouth of Neil deGrasse. See, I have a problem with Neil, right? Neil gets on national TV and says the Earth is shaped like a pear. The Earth is shaped, it's chubbier at the equator,
It's a little chubbier.
And in no picture, think of all the new pictures that just came out, right, of the Earth. None of the pictures is showing a pear.
And he's never done a measurement.
So why isn't the scientific community in the face of Neil deGrasse Tyson? He's the one that made the statement that it's chubbier at the equator. It's pear-shaped. I've done at least 3 videos on that stupid comment that he made.
Yeah.
But he meant it. He meant every single word of it.
Right.
But then we get this contradictory evidence of so-called who was it that just came out with new Earth pictures? Was it Russia? Somebody just came out with new Earth pictures.
I haven't seen any new ones lately. Not the Himawari.
Maybe. Well, anyway, it doesn't look like a damn pear.
No.
So if it doesn't look like a pear, why isn't someone holding this guy accountable?
Well, they don't.
For what he said.
That's the thing about. I wish that science was what they proclaim to be, because if we had scientists out there actually questioning the moon landings. See, you're not allowed to question the moon landings because if you're a scientist, all of science is based off the fact that we went to the moon. So, of course, they can't question that. But it's like, if they really, I mean, scientists should be hearing some of the things we're saying and saying, that's interesting. Why are they able to bring back boats when they go beyond the curve? Let's look into this. And within a week, science should be able to say, oh, you know what, there's a mistake here that, we're actually seeing further. The ball's bigger. The equation's wrong. They don't do that. They shy away from anything that, like you said, goes against the mainstream. So they're not scientists. They're indoctrinated lie tellers who
it's funding. They don't want to lose their funding
or their job or their right. I mean, that's
because think about it. You're a theoretical scientist. All of a sudden, you don't have your funding anymore. You're blackballed in the circles of theoretical science. What you gonna do?
Right.
You gonna work at Wawa?
I mean, yeah, Neil deGrasse.
You gonna work at Walmart?
Yeah.
You literally can do nothing else.
Yep. Neil deGrasse has to be that job.
You can try to go teach. You can try to go teach, but if you're blackballed in those circles, you may not even be able to get into education.
I don't even think it's part of the human psyche is not capable. Neil deGrasse, no matter what, has spent 30 years teaching children at a planetarium every day. He obviously, all of his friends are in that industry, in that business. They're scientists. All of his family thinks he's smart. He goes around telling people he's smart. So it is not physically possible for him to realize that he's teaching a deception. It's just not in human nature. It's beyond that now because he can't. He would have to then say, oh, so for 30 years I've learned lies. I've taught lies. I've told people I'm smart and I'm not. And it's just not possible. You would. Yeah. It's like you said with like a Red's rhetoric. If you start calling people names and saying things about, then you will be a globe believer no matter what. Because now you put yourself in that position where to see the other side means you first have to say, oh shit, I've been calling people names for 2.5 years. I've been screaming about how dumb they are. And it was so humans can't do that. I mean, it just can't be done. They'll fight it. And that's what NASA banks on is the fact that these minions are out fighting their battles, right? And once you've started fighting those battles, you can never stop. You've been calling people names. You've been telling everybody how dumb they are. You've been putting in comments that they're morons. So it's hard for those people to ever consider the fact that they might be wrong because then they have to first say, oh shit, I've been calling people all these names. And it might happen occasionally. I know a couple people that have written me and said, hey, I'm sorry I wrote some bad things about you in your comments, but now I've kind of come to see the issues that you're talking about, and now I have questions. So that it does happen. But I think if you're like a channel maker, do we know of anybody who's ever made a video anti-flat Earth talking about, nobody like that's ever retracted what they said because you just can't. I think that I would be able to. I think that because clearly what I've said before that is at the very least, no matter what comes out of this whole thing, if I'm right and the Earth is flat, great. We helped remove the false belief that was inflicting humanity. And if I'm wrong, then I hope that we change the way we teach children and adults and everybody by showing evidence and not just teaching things as fact and then waiting till they're 35 years old to show it. But that, why do I know that the Earth is flat? Because I experience it and I've been given no evidence that should lead me away from that experience. There's there's nothing.
Exactly.
I mean,
as far as the humbleness of humanity, it's all about the ego. I mean, a lot of people go through cognitive dissonance when their ideas are challenged and legitimate evidence is presented to show that their ideas is bullshit. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it's not that you're saying that their ideas are bullshit. It's just that you're saying you're in contradiction.
Right.
So if there's things that are contrary about the things you believe, and you don't know how to answer that to save face, they start calling us names.
Right.
They start
your
calling
body
us names
fights
and
it.
They start labeling us and all these different things. So I think humanity can recover from their dominant ego and can be humble. But I think we first got to realize that we don't have anything to gain by living untruthful.
Absolutely.
There is no gain to living that way. Just because you learned something, just because your mother believed it, your father believed it, and your favorite teacher believed it, doesn't make it true.
Right.
So if you can determine what's truth, and you can show evidence that what you're saying is true, lay it out and share it with people.
Yeah.
And if people get it, great. If they don't get it, they just don't get it. They'll get it in the afterlife. They'll
Yeah.
find out that they were living an untruthful life in the afterlife.
It's very freeing too. It's very freeing to get to the point in your life. I know you're probably the same place where you no longer have any beliefs unless they are something you've come to on your own research. It's just it's so
Right.
much better to it's such a big difference between before where you would stand up for things that you believed in and everything, but that belief was not your own coming to. For me now,
Right.
if I tell you I believe something, it's because I may be wrong. I'm not saying I'm not wrong, and
Right.
it may be differently what you believe, but it's something I've come to, and so I feel good holding on to it. Just like we talked about, I have no problem with people who say, "Oh, Pythagoras was in 500 BC," whatever. For me,
Right.
I don't believe that those people, because I've done the research, and I feel like for me, the more comfortable position is I think those people were made up. None of the books really make sense. They all kind of seem like a little. So I mean, it just is so much of a more free, and that's not something you can come out of school. Maybe you can now, but not when I was going to school. You had to come out, like you said, you had to take a test. So you came out of school believing the same thing as everybody else, and that's not the way we should teach children. That's not the way
Right.
that you progress knowledge. I mean, if you teach children in school that cars run on gasoline, then it shouldn't be surprising to us that all cars run on gasoline, because nobody's out there trying to think outside the box and say let's make a car that runs on water. Let's make a car that's less, doesn't let go so many emissions. We're teaching children that like the way it is the way it is. Everything that this is the way it has to be. No, we should allow sixth graders a week to where we say, okay, this side of the group, who thinks the Earth is flat, who thinks it's a ball. Okay, now spend a week putting together some tests to try and show what you experience, and they would come out of that and have to show that they experience the Earth to be flat, but they don't teach that way. Why? Well, because we know why. That they're not trying to teach you truth. They're trying to teach you an accepting of something as true that allows them to have control over you. That's the difference.
Exactly.
They-
Exactly. They want you to embrace the narrative.
Right.
Because
then you become a good taxpayer. You become a good citizen. You
Right.
pay your taxes, pay your property taxes, get your car registered. They want you to do. That's the kind of person they want. They don't want somebody who thinks outside the box at all.
Right.
That's the worst thing for them.
Right. Which is the worst. Which is really it's kind of evil when you think about it, because
it's
by
evil.
limiting the creativity of human beings,
Oh, they've destroyed us.
we don't evolve. We don't evolve more. We don't. Can you think of all the ideas, or what am I trying to say?
Well, yeah, I think I know
All
what
the
you're trying to say.
all the potential of what humanity could accomplish if they just released the mind control on humanity.
We'd be so far ahead. We'd be so
Yeah.
much further. And not so far ahead technologically wise, maybe that too, but it would be spiritually, it would be collective.
It'd be a better place, right?
It'd be a better place. Absolutely. That's what's missing, is that they take you away from yourself. Everything is external. That you believe in that God, believe in those stars, believe in those planets. Everything takes you away from the most important thing that there is, which is yourself. If you know yourself, then you can't hurt people. You can't be rude. You can't call somebody fat. You can't, because you recognize how things like that hurt people. But when you externalize everything for everyone, and that's what they do, right? Watch this TV show, go see this movie. Everything for children is outside of yourself. And once, like they said, you have to first get to know that and recognize yourself as to me, I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like we're spiritual beings in a physical existence, but we're
Right.
being taught that we're physical beings in a physical existence. So you've completely removed the spiritual element, and you do it at such a young age. Yeah, I'm not even sure if I think it can come back. I mean, I think it can, but I think it might be so far gone that we don't even know what it is anymore. You know, I mean,
Right.
how do we know that you and I can't just connect by staring at the moon? Maybe you stare at the moon, I stare at the moon, we can communicate that way. I mean, it sounds crazy to people, but we don't know those things because they've completely from a young age removed that thought completely from your head. That's none of that's possible.
Right.
But we don't know that that's not possible. It's just we've been taught it. Nobody's studying it. Nobody's researching it because, like you said, where are you going to get funding to do that test? You know, me and Curtis was
Right.
out staring at the moon and trying to pass numbers back and forth. But I mean, that's just a bad example. But I mean, there's so many other things that I
Right.
feel like we could be researching, discovering. The whole school system. I don't know about you. I didn't learn anything I needed to do in life in high school. I mean,
No, I didn't either.
No, it's like a. What are they
Girls
doing?
and football.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, and that's it, right? I mean, there was nothing that you needed in your life. It's like, where's the class that taught what it should have taught me about credit cards? I came out of high school, 18 years old, get all these offers for credit cards. Within no time, I think I had $25,000 in debt because I was just going on trips, traveling places, and then you start seeing that bill with the interest. It's all a trap. It's like you were trapped.
When I was in college, in the late '80s,
Mm-hmm.
they if you went to college, they would have the tables in the student activity building, and you walk up to the table, and they would give you $100 bill or $50 bill if you signed up for a credit card.
I mean, see what I'm. That is, wow.
Yeah, that's how I was in the late '80s, and I signed up for my time as my 4 years in college. I think I signed up for 6 or 7 different credit cards just to get that cash.
Right. And they probably then you racked them up, and then you had a big
Yep.
payment. See, and that's
Absolutely.
just trapping
Yeah,
people. They're
I
purposely
even had a
trapping
gas card that you can use at a gas station,
Mhm. I had one
and
of
I
those too.
and I didn't have a car.
You just go in there and get something to eat. Yeah, that's a trap, man. I mean, the whole thing is a trap.
Oh yeah,
They want you in every
Yeah.
possible way to be. I mean, I always talk about the education system. The education system, I mean, it's a joke. Think of what we have now. We've got internet, high-speed internet, computers, that where a child can wake up, or a teen, or somebody who's college age can wake up, can go to their computer and be taught a class by one of the best teachers in the country, and that teacher would be able to wake up and teach 1 hour class. The students would be able to maybe drop a penny, and you maybe take it costs a penny to take that class, and the teacher would get paid a ton, and nobody would pay any money for education. They would all be learning from the best teacher. But no, what do? We give student loans so that these children have to go away to school, which is completely ridiculous. Why are we sending people to faraway locations to learn something they can sit at their house and learn on a computer? It's right there in front of them. But it's more trapping. They want people to be in the debt system.
Yeah, all the technology is there now. Everything you need.
Everything
you
you
can learn online now.
But they've got these set up paradigms, right? It's just like the whole oil industry that Tesla came around, or whoever comes around and says, okay, I've got a new idea for electricity. No, sorry, we make money off pulling the electricity in and storing them at our little plants and then charging people for it. Sorry, we're not. I mean, nothing new is going to come from that. We need to think differently. We need to think outside the box. We need to let children's minds wander and explore and think about. I don't know. For me, I miss being a kid so much. If there was one thing that's, I would go back and play a game of wiffle ball out in front like I did when I was 6 or 7 or 8. If I could, take one day back, that's what I miss. Is that that carefree feeling, right? You remember that? There wasn't a worry in the world. Yeah, nothing going on.
Right.
No bills, no house to clean, no nothing. You were just a child, and that's when we are our most open to. But they take that away from us, and that sucks. But as far as I'll close it out, going back to the senses. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say was, I think it's important, and I think it'd be helpful for most people to understand that we're outsourcing our power right now. Your true power of knowing truth and let me put it to you this way. I believe our purpose. This is something that has intuitively come to me. Right, I didn't read this somewhere in some book, or it feels right when I say it and when I think it.
Okay.
I believe our true purpose is to witness God's creation. Now, when I say God, I'm not really a religious guy. What I really mean is the source,
Right.
but God makes sense too, right? Witness God's creation and expressing unconditional love. I think that is our true purpose. Everything else is a mental construct that is a subcategory of those two, or it's completely in opposition of our true purpose.
And the funny thing is that's Jesus's two commandments. I mean,
Really,
for Christians, Jesus's two commandments were love God, love your neighbor. That's it. And
really,
that's what you just said, basically. I mean, you didn't say love
yeah,
God, but yeah, appreciate
yeah,
your existence here. It's absolutely mind-boggling that we're here. The fact that anybody
right,
can look around and say accidental, stardust exploding. No, look at what you
right,
are. You're the most unbelievable creation that there ever has been. The cells in your arm know to be in your arm. I mean, that's
right,
just. I mean, you've
right.
been put together
There's a higher
magnificently.
intelligence going on
Oh yeah.
that science does not know, and when they don't know something, they ignore it. You know,
Well,
the
all
body
that they
has its
do,
own intelligence.
all
A
they
lot
do
of
is they
people
pick it
don't
apart,
realize
right?
that.
They pick it
I'm
apart.
sorry.
Science. I was just saying, science picks apart the creation. So it's like,
Right,
if I have this chair that I'm sitting in and I tear it apart down to its bare little elements, well, it still was built and created by something other than me. And that's all science is doing. They're
right,
tearing apart the world. They're looking at everything as close as they can, and they think because they can do that, that it means that no God exists. That's not what it means. It
right,
means you are looking into the tools used by God.
right. Right. So there. So anyway,
Keep
the
going on
reason I
that line.
brought that
Yeah.
up, those purposes, is to also say that that's where our true power is. So when we talk about the five senses, you are regaining your God-given tools to know that which exists outside of yourself. Your true power. Our power to know the external world begins with it being detected through one or more of the five senses. It's that simple. If you do not embrace your five senses and see it as a gift, a divine gift, or but I guess you can't say it biological. It's a sense. It's the only method of engaging the natural world. And if we don't do that, we outsource our intelligence and they own us. It's still in our mind what is true and what's not true. And that's the cost of giving up your ability to know that which exists outside of yourself. If that makes any sense.
It does. And in fact, almost your and my beliefs are exactly aligned. If somebody were to ask me, describe why we're here, what we're here for, the only difference I would have between that is I think it becomes so clear if you look at the world and you say, okay, it is a creation. Okay, I've got a higher power somewhere. There is a mind or intellect beyond me. Then you have to recognize, how would that intellect communicate with you, and how would it give you tools? Well, it would give you senses to operate the world
Right.
in. And how would you
Absolutely.
know? How would you know right from
Absolutely.
wrong? Right? How would you know right from wrong? You would know right from wrong not from reading a book, not from because books are written by men, that it would be inside you. And that was the biggest
Right.
revelation of my life, was realizing that when I hurt somebody, I feel it. When I
Right.
am rude to somebody, I feel bad about it. When I
Right.
had a one night stand, I felt rotten about it. But when you start to realize that by fostering a relationship with a girl and you love her and so you sleep with her, that I didn't feel bad about that. There wasn't that
Right.
same feeling. So that's how I kind of learned, well, wait a second, yeah, okay, I got religion telling me you have to be married to have sexual relations, but I wasn't feeling like doing that as long as and that's how I kind of learned, okay, wait a second. The idea of doing God's will, which they talk about in the Bible and everything, is simply doing, I think that the best way to describe it is like, are you promoting the light or are you promoting the dark? And like you said, unconditional love, right? You're promoting the light. You're promoting growth. You're promoting love. You're promoting laughter, happiness, helpfulness, compassion, all the things that promote sharing, everything that's the light, right? And then there's those out there who foster the darkness, lies, deceit, hate, frustration. And so I think it became clear to me that the goal of life is to try to align everything that you do to the light, to push the goodness, and that is doing the will of God, because and actually I think you're given help along the way if you operate in that fashion. If you align your goals with the will of God, that's when things manifest for you. That's when opportunities come when you're looking for a job. That's when relationships come out of nowhere when you are open. So I think that's kind of how I look at it, that once I saw that and I said, okay, I see how it works. And then I realized the absolute worst thing that you can do in what I just described is to remove any part of that and hand it to somebody else, which is if you, and again, if people believe, they can believe whatever religion they want. For me personally, if I believe in a religion, I am removing what that creator has given me and giving it to somebody else to decide how I should operate. Oh, I should go off this Bible? Okay, I'll go off the Bible. And that's why I don't believe that the Bible can possibly be written by God, because I don't think we're ever supposed to externalize something and say, I'll go there to find the truth. It's no, you'll go here. This is where everything is. This is where the answers would be. This is where my senses are. So I think it's just all that. Anything outside of that, if you trust somebody, like you said, the science is telling you to do this, your teacher's telling you this is true, your parents are telling you this is true, your friend is, all that stuff is man belief.
Yeah.
And
constructs of man.
Right. And I think that's the scariest thing. I don't want to be, I've described it before. If on my last day I face the Creator, I can explain that, oh, you know what, God, I came to my, hey, thank you. Pizza and beer. I came to myself. I looked inside for you. I tried to make my decisions based off my intuition and off my conscience. And so I'm sorry that I didn't, but I don't think I would be able to face the Creator and say, oh man, I was believing that book, because at that point you're saying I was outside of myself. I should have looked here first. So that's just me. I think that the Creator has given us the tools. You get given you your senses, and I think there's more than 5 senses. I don't think it's 5. I think there's more, and we just we don't know how to use them. But there's some people do. Intuition, right? You have premonition, maybe that feeling you get when somebody's looking at you from behind. You turn around and you can see. That's probably outside the 5 senses. I think magnetism is another sense that we have that we've probably lost. I mean, birds can do that; they know how to fly south. So I think there's a lot of things that the tools we give. I think we need to get back to using those tools. We were given the tools to operate life. If I'm going to go cross the street, I have the tools to cross the street. I don't need outside things. I know my ears. I'm going to listen for cars. I'm going to look both ways. I have my feet to get across. But I think if we start looking outside for the answers, then we should expect to be deceived. That's all. I mean, you can believe the scientists all you want. And you know what? Maybe 9 out of 10 times that what they're telling you is true. But I'd rather not take the chance of putting my trust in other people, especially I can look at life and say that every single person I've ever known has lied to me at some point.
See, you're giving them too much credit when you say 9 times out of 10, because
I'm saying
most of what science is put out there, theoretical science put out there, can never be proven.
True, you're right. And I guess when
it's one of those things. It's one of those things where you have to accept it. Either you accept it or you don't. Because because I'm really trying to think of a situation where they said something and it turned out to be true.
Especially if we're talking about your senses. I don't think you can. So okay, let's think about that for a second. So something that science has told us our senses are wrong.
Theoretical science.
Well, it wouldn't be theory if we could prove it one way or the other, right? So, like, I'm trying to think of something that they've told us our senses are wrong, and we can actually prove that they were right about that. Well, there's nothing. All of the things that our senses are wrong about are the distance to the moon, the size of the sun, the orbit of the sun, the distance to stars, what stars are, It's everything that they can possibly lie to you about. They've lied to you about. They can't lie to me about what this keyboard is made of because I can test it and see it's plastic. So there's no lie there. But anything that if they can get one over on you, and that's why I think orbits are a lie. That's why I think satellites are a lie, because it's something that they know they can get over on me, right? I mean, if they can tell me satellites are orbiting the ball Earth, but they really just need to lift it up on a balloon, then they're going to take advantage of that because they can.
Well, let's go there for a second. The problem with satellites is that we don't have anything that exists on our planet or plane that we can compare it to. How did they test satellites before they put it up in the sky?
Newton drew a ball and then showed a cannon that if you shot it too
You see my
far-
point? Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people don't realize this. The ISS, quote unquote, the ISS, is the size of a football field.
Right.
How did they put that thing together, put it up in the
They built it up there, believe that's what they say.
stratosphere?
It's
They
ridiculous.
built it up there and they put it online and they did all the. How did they do that?
It's impossible
When
to
did
test
that
any of
happen?
that. It's impossible
You
to
know,
test it.
and what do we have on our planet that we can say that is comparable to that feat alone? A good example would be submarines, right?
Right.
A submarine is built and it can only go but so far.
Short too, like 200 feet. It's like not very
200
deep.
feet or something like that, right? But how many people does it take to run a submarine?
Fucking city. No, it's like a ton of people.
Right. So you got what? At least 200-300 sailors in a submarine,
If it's
right?
Mm-hmm.
How many do they have in the ISS? And it's the size of a football.
Sometimes 3.
Do you see my point? Who is steering the damn ISS?
Who's cleaning it?
Who's cleaning it?
Yeah.
Who's doing maintenance and repairs?
It's been up there 16 years.
I can't believe people believe that bullshit.
Me neither.
You know, it's the size of a football field.
And the cosmic rays that would be coming through the windows would fry you. They'd fry you. Those guys are standing at those windows taking pictures. It's like, you would get fried. Yeah, no. And you know what? I used to think too, I was like, well, maybe those satellites, they're testing them in vacuum chambers. But there is no vacuum chamber on Earth that doesn't have walls and a ceiling and a floor. That's what space is. You have to, for something to operate in space, there is no walls, there is no ceiling, there is no floor. Yet they say, oh, well, we test them in this vacuum chamber. Like, that's not the same place.
Jaron,
Impossible.
what piece of equipment do we have on this plane that doesn't suffer from wear and tear? Do you see what I'm saying? It's really simple.
But this is the thing. They make a magical place where there's no wind resistance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you know what I
That's
tell
crazy.
people? This is what they don't realize when they're saying like, "Oh, we go 66,000 miles per hour around the sun." This is what you have to believe if you believe in the globe. It doesn't matter if you're going 66 quadrillion miles. It's the same. That's what they're allowed. They're allowed because there is no wind resistance, and you wouldn't know. They tell us we can't feel the Earth spinning, so it doesn't matter if the Earth is spinning. And people say like, "Don't say that the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour because it just seems like it's going really fast, but it doesn't matter." It's like, no. It doesn't matter if the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour or 10 million miles per hour because we wouldn't feel it. That's the belief of space because you can't. There's no friction. Space is. They call it the vacuum. No, they call it the fabric of space, right? But space is what? How would you describe space? If I said, what is space?
The distance between 2 points.
No, like space in the sky. Like if what is out in space? It's the absence of everything, right? There's no molecules. They say there's no nothing. So they say the fabric of space, which is.
I'm still waiting for evidence of that.
How could you have evidence of nothing?
Exactly.
And
So how could they come up with that speculation? You know,
because men in 1600 drew pictures on they drew the ball, then the cannon on top, and said, if I shoot the cannon too far, it'll go off in space. If I shoot it too short, it'll hit the Earth. But if I shoot it just perfectly right, it will come around back and hit my head. And then somebody ran with it, and they kept. And you're right. There's no way to test that. You would have. How many? They should have had a bunch of people dying. They should have a bunch of people dying, putting
it's
them
all
up in
bullshit.
space.
Yeah, I mean,
No, it's
how
all
do
bullshit.
you?
It's all bullshit.
How how do you try any of this stuff? I mean, like, how do you build something and put it up in the atmosphere and it just stays there? Like, it's just there,
Yeah.
and it's traveling 50. Is it 15?
17.
Was it 17,000 miles per hour?
Yep, and if you do that in per second, it's 87 football. You're a football player. 87 football
Right.
fields, 1 second. That's how fast that
Right.
goes.
So, what do we have on this planet
Nothing even
that
close.
we can compare
Nothing.
traveling around the Earth?
I think the fastest we can send something is, I mean, they might have some planes that go like 3,000, but that's even nothing we can see. I think the fastest like land
3,000?
a plane, maybe. I mean, maybe. I'm talking about the fastest real thing that we could actually go, you and I go see, is probably a car that goes 800, and then there's a plane that, you know, planes go what, like 1,500 probably, like the Concorde and those things.
Right.
Maybe I could see a jet going
if I
2,000.
shot a gun,
That's
right?
That's 2,000 miles per hour at the most.
exactly. So something a football field.
Mm-hmm.
See, I just want people to wrap their minds around these ideas.
Yeah, like there's
something the size of a football field is traveling faster than a speeding bullet
with people inside of it.
with people inside of it. That doesn't require maintenance.
Nope. And they just send them up
That
like it's
doesn't
willy-nilly.
require repair.
Just send up 3
My
this month,
question
send
is
back
this.
3 months.
When they do spacewalks, right? Are they traveling 17,000 miles per hour?
Well, again, it doesn't. Yeah, sure, that's what they say. But again, it could be 17 million miles per hour because it doesn't matter.
They're playing games, man.
Well,
I can't believe people believe this shit.
Imagine, let's picture ourselves in space. So if you're in space and you start running, there's no wind blowing in your face. It's just
Right.
you're in nothing. It's like that's the thing, is it's all theoretical, and when you really go back and look at it, you know, those guys asked me last night. They said, how do you think this came about? Who's in charge of the lie? Why is it a lie? And I said, I think that 500 years ago, 600 years ago, these scientists thought the Earth was a ball. I think they saw boats go over the edge. They thought it was a ball.
Mm-hmm.
They thought Newton's idea was working. They thought that the stars were everything they thought. But then, and they got, you know, science gets some things right. I'm not saying they don't get things right. But somewhere along the line, when they realized they were wrong, they knew they had a choice. Either admit that the church was right and they were wrong, and then possibly lose the whole thing, or to keep up the lie so that science could continue. And that's how they convinced each other to do it. Basically like, hey, if we don't lie about this, then the whole science crumbles and we go back to being under the control of the Pope. And so they said, we can allow the science, we'll allow this lie, we'll go ahead and lie about this so that we can continue doing our other science. That's what makes sense to me, because there's no other way they would get like that. I just think they kept, and then that's easy. You start building the lie up, you kind of protect it, and it's all nonsense.
Jaron, I pull a gun and I pull the trigger. The ISS is going faster than me pulling the trigger on my gun.
I think the gun goes 8 football fields in a second, and the ISS goes 87 or something.
Exactly.
With a person inside of it.
That is such
Here's the crazy
bullshit.
part about that. I would actually say, but if it's in space, but the rocket has to go that fast to get out of the atmosphere. So the people are in the spacecraft when they're in the rocket, flying. I think escape velocity is to get into orbit is like 17,000 miles per hour. So the astronauts are sitting in. We can't get a bullet to go that fast. It's tiny and metal. It's a projectile, but we can make it bigger and put people inside of it.
What about the organs in the body? I mean, what the hell is going on?
Everything just
I can't believe
operates
people
fine.
believe this stuff.
It's funny. I mean, you know, I still laugh. If I really start thinking about the globe Earth, I will die laughing, because it's a ball in space that
Right.
is spinning and is being held up by nothing. It's in nothing.
Right.
It's in nothing, and it's flying 66,000 miles per hour. So figure out how many football fields that is, and it just doesn't make any sense. They tell you. Remember, they taught us every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So what's the equal and opposite reaction to the Earth spinning? Where are we turning back the other way? Where's the pushback there? It's like they tell us these laws. These are Newton's laws. They can't be broken. Oh, except for the Earth breaks it. I mean, it just.
Well,
Oh God,
Newton was
show
a
you.
33 third degree Mason, right?
He was.
Or is that not true either?
I don't know about Newton. He's a weirdo though. I know he never had sexual intercourse. I know he didn't. You know what? I gotta find this thing. Maybe you love. Newton wrote down. If you look up, want to see something funny. Newton wrote down his sins.
He did?
Newton. They found this trunk. Oh, this is so funny. I'm not sharing this. Hold on. Newton. They found this trunk that was in his house or whatever, and these scientists bought it because they thought it was going to have all this scientific paperwork in it. But when they opened it up, it was like tons of religious and Bible predictions and stuff. It wasn't anything science-wise. But in there was like his list of sins. Where is this thing at? Why is going on here? Why is this not showing? Oh, yeah, there it is. So it's just funny to look at real quick. So this is his number one sin. This is before Whit Sunday, 1662. He used the word God openly. Then he eating an apple at thy house. That's it. Making a feather while on thy day. Denying that I made it. making a mousetrap on thy day. Contriving of the chimes on thy day. Squirting water on thy day. Making pies on Sunday night. Swimming in a Kimmel on that day. There's some funny ones over here because it's like he hurt somebody or something. This one. Punching my sister. I just thought that was funny one time.
Wow.
What were we talking about right before that? I was going to show you something. I don't remember. You moved me to Newton. God, right before that we were talking about something. I don't remember what we were talking about.
I think we were talking about the speeding bullet and ISS and.
Oh yeah, what was that?
Oh, you were talking about spinning Earth 66,000 miles away.
I had something I wanted to show, but I don't remember what it was. I'll think of it in a second. We'll go back to the picture of you. No, yeah, I don't remember what. Yeah, we're talking about the crazy speeds and the nonsense. What was I talking about? Then we got on to Newton, and I said that he had his list of sins. That's pretty funny if people want to go there and check that out. See, he'll say like, I was disrespectful to my mother. Then the next one's like, I was disrespectful to her again. And the next one was, I didn't care. It's a list of sins. God, what was I going to show you? Anybody remember what I was talking about? Probably not. It says, honestly, how would he or anyone know he never had intercourse? He said, he wrote it in his memoirs that he didn't believe that, he thought that was transgressing the law. Again, people can believe in his writings or not. I mean, I don't necessarily think that... I mean, if you really want to get crazy about Newton and you really think about him, you know, when Newton was born, which was December 25th. And then, yeah, really.
How convenient.
Right. And then you think of when did he come to the realization of gravity? When he got hit in the head with an apple that fell from a tree, which is the same thing as the apple in Genesis. And it was the fall, the apple falling from the tree. And his name was Isaac, which was just like Abraham's son Isaac. There's so many correlations sometimes with these people that it's crazy. God, I wish I remember what I was going to say.
Which shows that the stories are probably lies.
Oh, I think they all are. That's what I'm saying. It's all. I mean, I don't think that those are his sins. You know, I don't think he sat down and wrote those. I don't know why they would think people would think that that's true. But there was this big trunk, and he actually said the world was going to end on 2043, 2063 or something. That's what they say. Again, people can believe what they want. When I say things like that, I don't mean that it happened, because you should know my beliefs in history are jaded for sure. God, I don't remember what I was going to show you. Oh, I know what it was. Now, thank goodness I remember. It was, okay, so these are the top 10 weirdest planets. Talk about nonsense. Hey, thank you so much, Q-Tip Mo. Q-Tip, I like the name.
Nice.
So this is the funniest video. I mean, I started watching this. I had to call my wife from the other room. Like, you have to come look at this. This is the biggest joke I've ever seen. So we'll just play this, and it's got some crazy amount of views. Am I showing my screen? I don't even know. Hello. We'll just watch one or two of these just so you can see. And these are supposed to be real, I think. Can you quiet down? Lord. Okay. This is classic. These are just...
Cold temperatures. The water in the planet's core is under such immense levels of pressure.
We'll start somewhere in the middle just for fun.
So strange. It also has a retrograde orbit, which means that it rotates in an opposite. This 3-star planet, which goes by its catalogue name of HD 188753AB, sits within the triple star system HD 188753. If you could live on this planet, you would experience triple shadows and constant eclipses as its 3 parent stars crossed each other's paths.
This is supposed to be real science.
And of course, you would see some of the
Are you serious?
strangest and most
Yeah, this is real. This is
beautiful
supposed to be
sunsets
like...
and sunrises in the universe.
Thank you so much, DS.
Now imagine you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The sky is blue with fluffy white clouds.
What a joke.
But there's no land to be seen. In every direction you turn is just endless water.
Like, how do they actually believe
that's
this?
exactly what it would be like if you were to visit this planet, 47 light years away from Earth, which goes by its catalogue name of GJ1214b. That's because it's made up entirely of water.
Yeah, sure it
Many
is.
scientists have nicknamed this planet the Water World. The entire surface of the planet is one giant continuous ocean, and it remains exactly the same for miles underneath the surface until eventually you hit the planet's core, which is coated in a thick layer of solid ice. But this isn't any ordinary ice. It's not the kind of ice you would find in your freezer.
Not just
because
ordinary
this
ice.
isn't frozen due to cold temperatures.
Oh.
The water in the planet's core is under such immense levels of pressure from the surface that the water above the core has been compressed into solid ice.
Oh.
This is a very special form of ice known to scientists as Ice 7. And last
That's not
but
theoretical.
Not least, 470 light years away is a planet discovered by the Kepler Space Observatory.
Kepler's true.
Known as Kepler 438b.
438b.
This planet is very strange, not because it has any extreme features,
How strange is it?
but quite the opposite, because it is, to date, the most Earth-like planet we have ever found.
Oh boy.
The Earth Similarity Index is a standard measure of how similar to
Earth
Earth
Similarity
another
Index.
planet is.
There was
Post-star.
such nonsense ones like
You may remember
one said that it rained shards of glass sideways.
side of Gliese 5H.
And this is actually like a science channel. I mean, this is supposed to be real. I don't get it. And people believe that, you know.
It has
not me.
12 million views.
Yeah, it had
That's crazy.
A person had like some crazy amount. I can't understand how they get that many. 10. What was the name of it? 10 strangest planets in space.
Planets in space.
Hey, thank you so much. I don't know. I can get it back there. Phil, thank you. You like my little GIF? I made that myself. It took me like a whole 2 hours, but it's pretty funny. It's those 3 guys dancing. All right, so tell everybody where they can find your stuff, and if you've got anything exciting coming up, and remind them that they should trust their senses. Are you eating?
No, you talking to me?
Yeah, just tell everybody where they can find your stuff, and any final words that you got, if you have anything coming up, any videos coming out.
Well, again, like I said, I only make videos and do live hangouts for one reason: to share. You can find me at Vegan Warrior. Just type in Vegan Warrior, and my page will pop up automatically. I'm like right on the top of the search engine. I have over 200 videos. I don't just talk about flat Earth. I talk about conspiracy. I talk about injustices in our society, health and wellness.
Yeah, tell
everything.
If people don't know, you lost a lot of weight, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was 160 pounds bigger than I am today.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the reasons I call myself Vegan Warrior was I had a near-death experience, and I identified what some of my ailments were, and I looked for a diet that would help me um, um, recover faster, you know. And I stumbled across the vegan lifestyle, and when I did that, um, my life changed. You know, I lost this ton of weight. The fogginess in my head cleared up, and my personality shifted. It was just a lot of stuff. So I've been vegan now for 8 years, and I embraced the lifestyle in its entirety. So not only am I vegan, I'm an ethical vegan.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in compassion and empathy, not just for the animals, but also people. And that's something I didn't have prior to going vegan. So I look at it as a lifestyle, and it's all about going back to those two goals that I said, or purposes that I think is mankind's purpose, which is expressing unconditional love and witnessing God's creation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's why we're here. And my vegan lifestyle just kind of introduced me to that. So as far as five senses, it's pretty obvious, guys. It's pretty obvious. If you don't embrace your five senses, you don't know truth. You just think you do.
Yep.
So if you want to know truth, you have to embrace your five senses. You have to always keep your five senses as in the mix. Because when you remove your five senses in the mix, you're subject to whatever they tell us. You know? And as you can see, they'll tell us anything. And because they're authority, they expect us to believe them blindly. Just like your pastor or your mind or, you know, your priest or whatever. So blind acceptance in others, I think, is one of the primary causes of most of the suffering and ills in this world. I think we need to open up our eyes. We need to witness God's creation and express unconditional love. That's all I got to say.
That's awesome. And I definitely recommend people check out your channel. I've found a lot of good stuff there. That's why, you know, I made that little music video that you heard at the beginning. Was just something that he has a real inspiring video that's called I'm No Longer a Flat Earther, I'm a Realist. And when I saw the video, when I saw the title, I was like, oh man, what happened to Vegan Warrior? Man, he's not gonna be, you know, what did he find? Where's the, you know, he found the globe. And so I started watching the video, and you know, the first couple minutes, first 3-4 minutes, I was kind of like, what's going on here? And then you got on a roll to the point where I was like pumping my fist by minute 5, right with you. And I think I commented on that video something like, is there any, you know, room on the Team Realist? Hey, thank you very much. Thank you so much. I got off that screen so I can't see. So it's definitely a channel worth checking out. Check out that video and all his videos. And obviously he did something right to drop the weight and live healthier, and I think that's important. Miss and I have been moving towards veganism, but you know, and it's just our own faults for falling back in. But we just usually, if we eat, it's fish. But you know, I think that that's the right way to go. I don't think that, you know, we should be harming animals. We are much better. We don't kill ants anymore. We don't kill, you know, things like that. We try and, if there's a spider, we put them outside or something. You know, just because,
Right.
I don't know. We don't know. And that's, if I was a spider or an ant or a fly, I wouldn't want to be just swatted with a fly swatter. Put me outside. So, you know, but
Right.
check out his channel. Check that out. And then tomorrow, should be tomorrow, I'm hoping that I want to talk to John the Morgile. So check that out. I'm not sure if we'll be here or if we'll be on his channel or where we'll be. But going to have a little discussion. Just him and I have a little differing opinion on, you know, how things should, anyway, I don't know, for me, I'm not into trying to steer the flat earth movement in certain directions or move it away from other directions, because I think that it's disingenuous to think that people who have come to the flat realization need help in deciding who they should follow, who they should watch, who they shouldn't follow, unless you had absolute concrete evidence of something, and I feel like if people don't know the story, because it's kind of been back and forth on some comments on his video. John did a recent video where he's basically said that IPS is planning some sort of, I don't know, rocket failure or something so that the flat earth looks bad and that we would be laughed at by the community because of it. And to me, we're already laughed at by the community. Flat earth doesn't have any kind of a stronghold in the community that we need to protect. And then again, I don't think that, for Mad Mike, the guy who's flying the rocket, he's just as much as a flat earther as me. So, I personally wouldn't come out and tell people, don't back this rocket launch, don't follow him, because he's a flat earther, and if he wants to do it, that's on him. And if people don't want to donate it to it, then don't donate to it. So, what happened was John told me about 2 days before he did that video that he was thinking of doing that video. And I just told him, hey, please watch that video I did with IPS. I did a 3-hour video with him the other night. Can you just watch that first? And so the differing opinions is that John didn't watch my video and made the video anyway. And he thinks that, he made the video based off his opinions about IPS. And I think he should have watched my video at least. And then if he still had that opinion, that's fine. But I felt that there was some things that he maybe got wrong or that he misunderstood that he wouldn't have if he would have watched my video. So that's it. We're going to do that tomorrow, hopefully. Just kind of talk about that and see if we can get anywhere on a common ground. But again, I think people can believe whatever they want. People can go anywhere.
Jerry,
go ahead.
can I say something about that real quick?
You can say whatever you want. It's on you.
How can you be, if you're a flat earther, how can you be pissed at someone that puts up a billboard?
I
just think some common sense needs to be put in the mix with a lot of this shit, because I'm in the Philadelphia area, right? And I seen the billboard online, and I was like, okay, that's cool. But I'm driving through Philadelphia, and I look up, and it says research flat Earth, and I was like, oh shit, it's right there, How can any flat earther shit on that?
Here's why. If I'm playing John right now, John thinks that he is a admitted Mason, and that but he did the same thing you did. He had some hangouts with Tim Osman, and much like I think maybe you do, if you're talking to me, you might talk a little bit different about some flat Earth things than you maybe would to Tim Osman. I don't know, but I think that's what IPS was doing. Was kind of, he was in a room with a bunch of ball earthers, and so he didn't quite, he was kind of playing their game. I don't know, but again, to me, that's the thing, is that until I had absolute positive, and I don't think the flat earth can be hurt in the way that he thinks it can. I don't, he seems to think that this rocket that Mike would be in would crash, and then it would vilify flat earth, and they would say flat earthers kill Daredevil, and I don't see it that way. I mean, when a NASCAR crash happens and it kills the driver, we don't blame Tide, because Tide was the sponsor on the car. So to me, I just don't have a fear of Masons. I think they're dirtbags.
There's people that believe shit. That's all they are.
Right, and if IPS is a Mason, then imagine what an idiot.
I call him the Cola Pythagoras.
Well, but why would the Masons? This is the thing that I think people forget. The last thing your government wants, the last thing the Freemasons want, the last thing any agency wants is for you to even think of the flat earth. So if for some reason there's any inputs in this whole movement that have been placed there by NASA or any organization in order for people to hear about the flat earth, and then they think that they'll be able to do something that will destroy people's belief, they're idiots. Because when people realize that they've been lied to on this level and they accept the reality of the place that they live, you can't just get them back by crashing a rocket and saying, oops, flat earth crash. It's not going to work. It's just, and if they think it's going to work, keep trying. It's not going to work. I've had so many emails from people who said, I used to believe in the globe and everything, and then I watch some of your videos, and then then they go through that process we all went through, and they come out on the other side, and they get to the point where they all say, I could never go back. So I think there's so many members of the Flat Earth community like that I think for me to come out and say, don't follow IPS, don't follow my cues, don't follow this rocket launch, don't congratulate somebody for getting a billboard up, I think is a very disingenuous and rude and assumptive.
I still got to beg the question, Jared.
Yes.
How many flat earthers have put up a billboard?
As far as I know, there's been 2, IPS and 1 really. I mean, I don't know. I think Dave Weiss put one up. I didn't. I mean, I look at it and I say,
you can't shit on them. You can't shit on them, even if they're a shill. If they put up a billboard that says "Research the Flat Earth," thank you, shill.
That's my opinion too. You're in the same boat
Thank you,
as me.
shill. I appreciate it.
That's what I said. You've got 300,000 people that saw Research Flat Earth that wouldn't have otherwise seen it, and if that is the Masons' technique, they're idiots. They're
stupid.
They're stupid.
Right.
And people say, oh, he puts these 666 hand symbols, or he wears the Illuminati shirt, but he's right there on his video saying, I'm doing this because I'm taking the power away from those who think that this is powerful. And I totally agree. So, I mean, we can't even... So
is he like a reformed Mason or something?
That's what he says.
Did he say that? Or
yeah, that's what he says.
He's reformed. He got away from it?
Correct.
I've met a couple guys like that.
See, so it does happen,
right?
right?
That was a Mason for a long time, and then he became real religious, and he got away from it.
He didn't become religious, but he saw what the Masons were, and he talks about their secrets, or what they believe and how they feel, and that they feel like anybody in the lodge is in the light, and anybody outside the lodge is in the darkness, and the whole goal is to help people in the light and to not help people in the dark. It's just, for me, again, and I told Morgile this, I said, you know what, you could be right. At the end of this whole thing, you might get to tell me, told you so. The only difference between that is, I don't think, well, when he told me he was going to do the video, I thought he would have the kind of evidence that would suffice that kind of video. And when I watched it, it was half the video was filled with things I would call errors, because he didn't do enough research into. He just missed Mad Mike as like, and this crazy guy who's going to go up in this rocket and just die. I'm like, the guy is a daredevil. He's not going to go up and die. This is his job. This is not his job, but that's what he does. So I said, if you would have,
you got a parachute, right?
Right, and all that stuff. So I mean, I just think that there's you can't just make a topical assumption.
Or you can do a better approach. You could bring IPS and Morgile and just mediate.
That would be awesome.
You could do it like that.
And I know IPS would do it, but I hope Morgile he said he's an Illuminati shill confirmed. I mean that's and again, I don't say that Morgile can't have that belief. I don't police people's beliefs. You are absolutely allowed to believe. You can think whoever you want is a shill. But I just think that by telling other people that, you're now imposing your beliefs on other people. And that's something that I'm not sure you want to do. You don't want to again, if I knew that there was something like that going on, then maybe I would come out and say that too. I just think that I thought I was waiting for a video full of reasons why this guy shouldn't be trusted. Instead, they were the kind of opinion somebody would have who hasn't watched IPS's Hangout. For me, when I do videos, when I make my videos, it's my time to kind of listen to videos, and I can't watch them because I'm usually putting together my images on my video editor, so I can only listen. So there's very few videos that I don't have to watch. Yours, one of them, when you're sitting at your table just talking, I can just listen to you. Morgile's videos, I just listen to his. And one night I turned on IPS and listened to it for 3-4 hours and got an idea of who he was and liked the show. And yeah, if I just would have listened to an hour of it, I would have made a lot of incorrect assumptions, because he would be rude to somebody at one point in the chat. And then he would say something kind of weird or funny, or call Joe Rogan a girl. And you get kind of confused as what is he saying. And so by listening to him over the course of a week, for 3-4 nights, I said, I want to talk to this guy. It's the scientific method. It's the way we should approach people too, right? If I want to get to know the guy, I said, IPS, do you want to come on my radio show Raw? He came on my show Raw. We did a 3-hour show. Of course, there's things I don't believe or we don't have the same beliefs in some areas, and other areas we have the exact beliefs, and we got along.
Right.
So then 2 days later, I went on his show, or it was about a week after, I don't know how long it was, that I went on his show for about 3 hours, and we talked about flat Earth and all kinds of stuff. And I don't think he's doing anything wrong. And that's when, John told me, hey, I'm going to, call out IPS. I think and I told him, please watch my video. Can you just do me that favor? Watch my 3-hour video with him, because I think there's some things you'll see. Because he said he doesn't talk about flat Earth. He doesn't give the proofs that we do. And I said, okay, then just watch my video. I think you'll have a different opinion.
If that's the case, Morgal's going to hate me because I don't never talk about science.
Right, and see, that's the thing. But you are a beneficial piece to the puzzle, because we all are unique and we're all just sharing our thoughts.
Right.
I learn from you. I learn from everybody I watch. I get something that meets my thing. So like you said, so this guy put up a flat Earth billboard, and is he putting a lot of faith in some rocket launch that's going to be lifted by a balloon? And well, I guess, but not one person has donated a penny to the second experiment, which is supposed to be a balloon that lifts a rocket to 120,000 feet and then launches from there. I think it's a crazy idea. I think Mad Mike is a nut job, but you know what? He's got balls that I don't have. You wouldn't catch me doing that, but that's why I'm not a daredevil, because that's what daredevils do, right? So, but I don't think he's no less of a flat earther than me. So for me to shit on his idea for a rocket launch where he goes up and tapes the Earth from up high, I don't have that ability to shit on him for that. He's a flat earther. He wants to do that. So
see the beauty of shills and agents and all this stuff. If you pay attention, they always expose themselves. You know what I mean? All you got to do is just let them do what they do, and you'll be able to see who they really are, because most of them can't go the distance without showing your hand.
I've said that. Yeah.
But when you jump the gun and you call someone out on something, you better have some evidence. If you don't have evidence, you need to shut the hell up. In my opinion.
And the thing that's scary there is if you did, let's say it's a shill, and now you've made that video, then he's just going to rework the way that he's going about it. So I don't think there's a lot of benefits that come out of it. And that's the problem, is that I don't know if you've ever heard this statement, what good can come of it? It's something I told my son his entire time growing up, because I think it's the best way to describe it. We'd be out in the front yard, I'd be washing the car. Next thing I know, here comes a screwdriver flying out of the sky, and it would hit me, hit the ground next to me. And I would go to my son and say, what did you, I threw it up in the air. It's like, dude, what good can come of that? What possible good can come from you throwing this screwdriver in the air? And the answer is none. Because it's either going to hit me in the head, it's not going to land and hit the sidewalk and break open to a million coins. It's not going to happen. So I think sometimes people don't look at the actions and think what good can come of it. Because if there's no good that can come of an action, then... So I don't really understand what good can come of calling out IPS and calling Mad Mike, who Morgal didn't ever listen to the video, so he didn't understand the experiment. He said, oh, he's going to go to 25 miles high in a steam rocket. It's impossible, or whatever. And I said, no, that's not the fact. He's going a mile in a steam rocket to break his previous record, and he's going to put the word flat Earth on the side of his rocket. That's awesome. There's going to be AP news out there because it's one of these stunt things. He's going to jump over some gorge or something, whatever. And I talked to Mad Mike. The guy is a flat earther. He knows NASA's been lying. He's been looking into the truths. He talked about the lies of the government. He talked about the fiat currency lie. He is a bona fide flat earther. So when I watched that video, I felt John shit on him with no reason to, because he didn't show any evidence of why, other than, well, IPS is promoting this guy, and I don't like IPS, so now this guy Mad Mike is going to die in some accident. So to me, I just didn't, we'll talk about it tomorrow, because maybe John's got other evidence that I missed, but I just felt that...
you guys are brothers. You're working out.
Yeah, we're brothers, and like I told him, if I ever was going to do a video on Shilly Sally, and I went to John and said, hey, I'm going to do this video. I'm going to expose Shilly Sally. And he said, oh, Shilly Sally, I've done 3 hours. I did a 3-hour show with her yesterday and a 3-hour show with her last week. Do me a favor, Jaron. Can you watch those videos before you do your video on Shilly Sally? There's absolutely no way that I would hear that and just say, screw John, I'm going to make this video anyway. And to me, that's exactly what he did to me. He came to me and asked, hey, I'm going to do this expose on IPS. And all I said was, John, do me a favor, watch my video first. And he said, okay. And then he made the video, and I could tell from the video very clearly that he didn't watch because he made wrong assumptions about IPS that he would have been corrected.
All you got to do is just sit down and talk with him.
That's what we're going to do.
You know?
No, I love John. And like I
Yeah.
said, John, every video, the reason I like John is because every video I've ever watched of his, and he's one on my short list that I listen to his videos, is well researched. And there's never been a case where I felt like he could have done more research so that he wouldn't have got something wrong. He always does the right amount of research. In this case,
Right.
I felt that he didn't watch the video that I asked him to watch because I felt it was important for him to know the things him and IPS and I talked about. So that's it. But again, I'm not saying that he has to watch my video. What I'm saying is if he would have watched it and still made the same decision to make the video, I would respect that. I would respect that and say, you know what? That's on John. He wants to make that video. But I have a trouble respecting the not watching my video and still making it because that was important to me, that if you're going to make this video, just at least listen to the video I did with him so that you kind of, because I think I used it as like a scientific method moment. I tried to get his opinions on some things. I talked about autonomous cars. I talked about Elon Musk. I talked about Neil deGrasse, Bill Nye. We kind of covered all the topics, flat earth, the proofs, the curvature, water. 3 hours of us talking, bouncing things back and forth. A lot of people loved the show. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people just think they can police my behavior. They say, oh, Jaron, you associate with that guy, therefore you're garbage. Well, they can think, please unsubscribe from me. Please do that, because if you don't have enough respect or faith in me to allow me to talk to people, then I don't want you watching my videos. And anybody out there, if I see another comment from somebody saying, Jaron sells blood on his website, I'm going to lose my mind. Go. Oh my God, it's people are lost.
You sell blood.
You can go to my website.
What kind of blood? You got vampire blood or something?
Yeah, but it's ink. It's not blood. We have a drop shipper, and it says right on there, it says like Bat's Blood Ink. And there's so many people that are passing around links saying Jaron and Mrs. sell blood on theirs. You can't sell blood. That's not legal. Okay, we don't sell blood on the site. But yet, and you should see, people that have been following me for 2 years, people I respected, I saw them make comments today like, Jaron, I have to unsub. I saw that you sell blood. It's like, please unsub. Get out, because anybody who just sees that, somebody basically dropped that link and they just believed him. They didn't go look. And if you can't do research, get out. I can't. I wish that you would. I wish that you would, but I can't just go around and correct people's faulty beliefs like, oh, come here, I'll show you that I don't sell blood. If you really think I've been doing what I've been doing for 2.5 years and then selling blood or something, then that's on you. Go ahead, leave, don't follow me. But, all right, final words, Curtis, before we head out.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I got you on all that because I started asking more questions.
No
I'm
problem.
just glad to be here, and it was a great chat.
Yeah, anytime. I thought it was good to talk about the senses. And let me check the chat, see if there's any last coming. Jeranism is becoming a fraud. Flat Earth Reset. Get out. Unsub. Why would you watch somebody and think, look at these people. I heard Jaron sells blood. Jaron sells. I can't believe.
But you got to say the good stuff. Someone said Jaron is the shit.
All right.
Excellent idea for the replacement.
Jaron sells snake
I mean,
oil.
it's all balances out.
It all balances
It's a yin and a yang. You got the people that's going to say the negative, but you got a whole lot of people saying positive too.
I love all those people. Yeah, anybody that recognizes what I'm doing, and do I make mistakes? We're human, of course. We all make mistakes. Do I look back sometimes and say I could have done that differently? I could have done this better. Absolutely, that's life, right? And the same thing with like IPS. If he's a former Mason, then I think everyone should be given a chance to change their life, right? I mean, you make mistakes. It's not like, oh, you're once a Mason, that's it, you're gone. I don't want you on my show ever again. I hope.
I got to comment on one thing I just saw. Someone said most vegans are gay, right? and that's true. That's actually true.
Not most.
And
not most.
Well, when I first went vegan in 2009, it was like almost all the men were gay, right?
Really?
And anyway, it just made me laugh. I was going to make a comment, but I'm not going to say it. I'll keep that. But the bottom line is there are straight men that are vegan, and I'm one of them. I just want to put that out there.
So if there's any single ladies in the house, give Curtis a call over here, okay? Let's see
That's
here.
funny.
Any final questions or answers or anything like that? Genuine questions, but
You got a great audience, man. You have a great audience.
Yeah, they're really cool. They, excuse me, a Flat Earth Reset was obviously saying something, but yeah, this guy Beer Fetcher just said, Jaron, keep being who you are. If I can promise you anything, that's all I can promise you is that I've never changed. And that's why I say when I tell people don't follow me is because I'm never going to change because of how, my wife even asked me when she saw those people making those comments, should I take those items off our site? I said, no, what? That's our website. We've had that website for 5 years and we have a dropship company. It's like, I'm not going to react to people like that because they don't dictate what I do. And we should judge people off their actions, not what we think that they're doing with selling blood. Those two clowns, Jason and Ronnie, said that I sell the blood on my site because if you do that, then you get your supply for wholesale. That's what they said. I go, okay, guys, whatever you say. It's so funny.
I got to share this one too. Someone
Sure.
said gay vegans eat meat.
Yeah, I guess they do, huh?
Oh my
sexes, I
God,
guess,
man. Your audience is crazy. I can't believe people are still up.
That's a good one. Well, it's only 10 o'clock on the West Coast.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Jazz. Nice seeing you
Yeah,
here.
it's
I secretly watch Jazz Sinclair a lot because he also does a show that you can just listen to. So I don't actually get to see him. The other day he did one show. I was dying laughing, man. He was talking about dyslexia, and he kept he can say words but say them like a dyslexic. I can't even do that. I don't even know how you do that. He just kept saying words but like replacing the letters. It was funny. But he had me laughing more times in the first 5 minutes than I've laughed in a while. So okay, making sure there's anybody else. Oh man, that's kind of gross. Eat an orange, spit out the seeds. I don't get it. Penguins are blind. Hey, me personally, I think the penguin is awesome because I think we didn't have a Flat Earth mascot, and David Weiss kind of had this idea. Imagine if we got Izod shirts that have the little alligator. If we got little like Fepe shirts, and then people would know like, hey, that guy is a flat earther because he's wearing a little Fepe shirt. It could be like a secret, clothing to wear. Jazz, it's a secret. Oh, you're dyslexic. I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, I just feel like you guys are go spoon with Miss and get off. We don't spoon. Believe me. There's definitely more action than that. Only 10:15 in California. Okay. Anybody else? Any final questions? You have 1 minute, then we're out of here. Tomorrow. And what's tomorrow? Saturday? No, Friday.
Yeah.
And then Globebusters is on break. And if you want to find the new Globebusters, you can go check out Jason and Ronnie's show. I saw their show today. It's called The New Globe. They say they're the new Globebusters. Those clowns, man. They said we don't have seasons here on the Yahawahai Flat Earth or whatever, or something like that.
So they're doing a spoof on you guys, or?
Oh, that's all they do is they just put my name in their title and basically talk nonsense the whole time. Katie Powerland says penguins are dying. So sadistic of her. Penguins are dying? Did you mention the German axial mount telescope thing? I don't know what that is. That smells like a cult, Jaron. What smells like a cult? People who wear Izod shirts? I don't think that's a cult. I thought I was the only one that sees that. Alex, what are we talking about? I can't keep up with it. Do vegans kill bed bugs? Good question. Do you spray ants like if they're in your house?
You try not to use any chemicals. You try to find natural means to get rid of. I mean, because remember, you got different types of vegans. You got ethical vegans, and then you have vegans that just eat a plant-based diet. An ethical vegan is going to do everything to get the animals or the insects out of the house without killing them.
Somebody said, did you mention the wolf dude with the German axial mount telescope joint? I don't know what that means. If you're talking about Wolfie, and a lot of people had questions about that, why'd you give in so easy? I gave in because I said nobody can model this on a ball, and he modeled it on a ball. So you accept defeat, you move on. Fepe shirts with penguins sounds like a cult. I don't know what kind of cult. I mean that then, right now, if somebody wants to wear a Flat Earth shirt to like a I don't know, casual day at work, they have nothing to wear. We don't have any flat earth shirts. But imagine you could throw on like an Izod shirt that says Fepe on it, and then maybe you see somebody else at work who's also wearing one. You're like, oh, you're a flat earther too? That's not a cult. I didn't say they're also laying down in Waco, Texas, and waiting for the end of days. Stars above the atmosphere, can we see them from an airplane? Questionable. Certainly not as many as oh, I'm going to ask you this question, because I saw on that Jason Ronnie show, he challenged me for $100, which, is it clear tonight? If it is, I'm going to go do it right now. They said you can't film stars while moving. And they said they would bet me $100 that I couldn't film stars while moving. It's just been the weather's been terrible for 3 days in a row. But if it's clear tonight, I'm going to go get in the car and drive with my camera and film the stars and give $100 to, I don't know, what Missa likes Save the Whales. I don't know. Yes.
Silver Bull is funny.
Vegan Warrior. Oop, I just missed it. All right. What's the best proof for flat Earth? All of it, and the fact that there's you live on a flat Earth. It's pretty easy. Okay. All right, guys. It's been fun. Thank you for joining us. And the way I look at the census thing is that you were given a gift of life, right? That we know that. But I think that the other gift that we're given is our senses. And we don't appreciate them. And maybe tomorrow, spend the day actually cognizant of how often you rely on them and how perfect they are in all those moments. And then maybe we'll start to realize that they are, in fact, where we should go first for our truth, and not to other men and stories out of books. So, till next time, guys, it's been fun, and we shall see you soon. Be kind, don't lie to each other, and open your mind. There's truth inside. Check out Vegan Warrior, and check out Jeranism and Jeranism Raw and Glowbusters. Peace!
Peace. That was cool.